This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
It feels as though we've been here before. The truth is, we have. Mount Panorama has in fact decided the Majors Drivers Championship before, and tonight it could see it happen again. Thunhorst has spent his due diligence this season displaying his impressive array of skills and is poised to be the latest in a line of versatile drivers to claim the Andretti statue. And though Clement is not mathematically eliminated, being the only driver in the top 5 who has yet to win a race this season does not bode well for his hopes. It's do or die time on the mountain as we get ready to watch the Bathurst 500. And you'll see it all live on the Global SimRacing Channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth tonight is Bill Soup Zahn. Next to him is our very own eNASCAR Peak Antifreeze driver, Christian Challoner. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Christian, you had a chance to race here earlier today in the European split, so I'll let you fill in our audience on this monster of a track.
Yeah, monster of a track is definitely right. 4 miles long, very long, 23 turns. And tonight we're going to be doing 81 laps around here, and I can tell you from my race earlier that it really is a long race. We're looking at about 3 hours here. But to give you an idea of what it's like to get around this place, I'll hand you over to the lap guide.
All right, we've got Amjad Yaman, the GSRC Holden, so let's do a lap around Bathurst. Coming down the front stretch, first up is Hell Corner. You can try passes into here, but it's probably better to wait until after. That's because right off the bat, you've got this critical 90-degree left-hander. If you get a bad exit out of here, you're going to lose speed all the way up the mountain straight. However, if you need a chance to relax, take it now, because you won't get it for a long time once we start climbing the hill. Now we hop the crest, and then right away you're braking for Griffin's Bend, which is only turn 2 in this 23-turn track. This corner is deceptively fast, but it's off camber, so it's easy to push wide into the outside wall on the exit. Now you start to get a feel for the rise in elevation as we head for the cutting. Tricky braking with this little kink, and then the car climbs up the astonishingly steep left-hander. Now we start to veer back right around Quarry, which requires incredible precision and really punishes mistakes. Same thing when we hit the top of the hill at Frog Hollow. You've got a series of really fast left-hand bends here with zero runoff, so push the limits at your discretion. It all culminates at McPhillamy Park with this super blind entry and a sand trap that does little to slow the car if you find yourself drifting wide. Immediately you've got to switch left and set up for Skyline. You're chucking the car into the S's on the faith that you can get it slowed in time for the dipper. This drop is really going to rotate the car, so be wary of how soon you get on the gas. After some more S's, you'll stay as far right as you can through turn 17 to set up for the painfully tough Forest Elbow. Curved braking zone, a patience-trying late apex, no runoff, and you're dumped onto the longest straight of the whole track. This is, of course, the Conrad Straight. You're going to go on a roller coaster ride of plunging all the way down the mountain, compressing, and then coming back up over the crest. By this time, you're approaching the Chase, which is the fastest right-hand corner of all of Australian racing. You'll hit around 180 miles an hour, just lift a little, then throw out the anchor for the chicane. This is much trickier than you'd expect. The combo of hitting your braking point accurately and coming up over a blind rise on exit makes it difficult to nail. Now we head for Murray's Corner. This is a good place to try to get a pass in, but it's also pretty deceptive for a 90-degree turn. The high curb means it can unsettle the car and send you spinning into the pit wall. But if you survive the whole way, you finished a lap around Mount Panorama.
It's no easy task doing that one time around this track, let alone 81 of them. And then, of course, 30 drivers trying to do that all at the same time. Speaking of those 30 drivers, we've had a lot more than that involved in the championship, Bill. In fact, we've had a lot of championships, and they're all coming to an end soon.
We do indeed. Some are exciting, some not so much. I don't want to be Eeyore and suck the enthusiasm out of the championship point race for the drivers, but basically this thing is all over. Because of unscored drop points in his pocket, Matthew Thunhorse, if he just stays out of trouble, the crown should be his. His Alliance teammate Trevor Clement is not safe in second. However, now look down at fifth. The Lotus 49 at Milwaukee was not the result that Travis Worling needed to challenge for the crown. But the unorthodox Motorsports factory drivers only 174 points out of second with a whopping 360 road point pocket points as insurance. Between Worley and second sits Liam Quinn and Eric Smith, either of which could finish in the bridesmaid spot. Looking at the team race, you know, if a team has the two top drivers, you got to expect that they're going to be doing good, and such is the case for Alliance Racing with Thunhorst and Clement sitting 1-2. Unorthodox Motorsports Factory, they got three drivers in the top 10 with Worling, Street, Driscoll, and the often overlooked Kevin Hill. Kinetics' big gun is Mr. Excitement Liam Quinn. He's third overall. Hey, how about Dog Bear Red? They feature Ray Partridge in 10th and Brian Barnes in 13th. More about Barnes in a minute. And while Taft Baldwin rides point for the Outlaws in 16th, Blake Reynolds' disappointing season hurt the riding shotgun team as they sit in 5th. Let's look at the sportsman class. We don't get to see these guys always, as sometimes they race in the unbroadcasted second split. But Kyle Murphy, he leads the class and is 31st in the overall standings, coming off his best point day last time out, earning 278. Samuel Scott is just 53 back. His best point day was 338 in round 5. That was the Predator race at the ring. Now remember, points are hard to come by in the sportsman class, so closing margins are tough. But on the flip side, if a sportsman can manage to hit big, like Scott did at the ring, intervals can shrink fast, so Ernie Ludwig, Rob Powers, and Mark Rediker still have a shot. However, out of those 5 drivers we just saw, only Murphy qualified for this broadcast event. Now we're going to look at our final class. This is the We Were Alive When Armstrong Walked on the Moon division, otherwise known as the Legends. Brian Bennett leads, and he's 9th overall. Brian Barnes, we talked about him. He's 13th overall. Both drivers have decent road pocket points to as insurance, so we don't expect things to change much before the season finale. Wayne Hutchinson, Brian McGreevy, and Bob the Salami Beltrami all have a chance to swap for that final podium spot. I'll get you out on this. Look at the observation here. Apparently, Brian was a popular name in the 60s, as 3 of the top 5 drivers share that moniker. Joe?
Certainly seems to be the case. Now, we talked a little bit about what's involved in this race with the track, but Christian, Let's delve in just a little bit deeper on the details for this one. Why don't you run us down the race details for today?
Well, we've got 81 laps here, and we do have one fast repair, and I won't be surprised if we see a lot of guys using that. This is a very, very difficult combination. And one interesting thing about this race is that it's starting quite early on in the morning, which means that the track temperature is just going to continue to climb the whole time, and it's going to result in the lap time starting off very quick, say maybe around about 7s, 8s to start out with. And then by the end of the race, I'd expect that we're going to see anywhere as high as 12s just because of how hot the track gets. So it is very difficult, and I expect we'll definitely see people using their spare car.
Yeah, it'll be tough to get to the end of this one with 3 hours of racing. Bill, it's not just the track that they have to worry about, and it's not just drivers that they're fighting for position. We saw in the past, in previous races, even though this is the top split, that you can get a drastic difference in pace and ability with drivers, and lap traffic has affected championships here before. Do you think it's going to be a little bit less likely today since the competition is up since we last saw that, or what's your thoughts?
Well, lap traffic here is always a problem. I think it's a matter of if you can be patient or not. I really think that consider what this series does as far as the mixed car track combinations and everybody changing. The quality of racing is really astounding. I don't see it being a big factor because a lot of time lap traffic is a matter of just inexperience, and all these guys have experience racing no matter what the discipline.
There's some experience on screen we saw for Dale Green. I think he's having a bit of fun there in the pre-race. Now, once again, you're watching this on the iRacing Esports Network, and we thank you for joining us this season in the majors, watching it on this channel. Make sure to catch the rest of the season, both this round and the following one, by subscribing. All you got to do is click the big red subscribe button, and you won't miss a moment here on IESN. Also, a quick shout out to the Majors store. Make sure, if you are a fan of the Majors, to show your support by go checking that out. It is at www.pacificmajors.com/store. You can pick up some swag there to show how much you love watching this series and all the incredibly talented drivers fighting for that Andretti trophy. Thunhorst, our potential champion. We make a big deal out of this, but again, all he has to do is complete 80% of the race and essentially finish 29th or better, which is a very low bar considering we have 30 cars out here today. So it's all done bar the shouting. Here are these 4 minutes left. The pit stops probably going to be a bit of a feature here. Maybe not so much as the strategy. Christian, you and I were talking a little bit about that if it gets spread out, but drivers and their teams certainly have to do their research before coming in today, figuring out exactly how long the stints can go and what is ideal for their setup to get in there and get some fuel.
Yeah, exactly, and it definitely comes down to who you're racing at the time as well. The fuel can last roughly about 23 laps, and with it being an 81-lap race, it kind of does split it up roughly into 20s and a 21, but you do have that little bit of margin that you can use to kind of offset yourself maybe to the people you're around, or say, for example, on the first stint, you might not want to pit on, say, lap 20, 21 for the fear of coming out in amongst guys who are still out there. So it might make sense to run all the way out on fuel the first stint, just so that then by the time you come out, you know everybody's pitted around you, and you're hopefully not going to come out stuck in traffic. And the thing is, the field does spread out some, so the later we get in the race, the less that's kind of a concern, and the more it might make sense to just sort of shorten up those runs to the race end, just because as the track's getting hotter, it's more difficult to manage on the old tires.
Also, if you're talented enough to crash your car near your pit window, it always helps. So you can come and get your spare car and take fuel at the same time.
That's definitely something to look out for. Absolutely, especially maybe with 20 laps to go or so.
And on screen, we also saw Christian, one of the drivers, having trouble making that kinetic car on its way into the pit lane. How much did you practice that pit entry? I have certainly botched that one a few times in races with pit stops when I've driven this track.
Well, I've got to be honest to say that for this race, I did a lot of qualifying practice, and I completely forgot certain things. I forgot that the pit entry is really, really difficult, and it's very easy to make mistakes, and I also forgot that it's a standing start. So there's a couple of maybe curveballs here for people who don't race in those kind of formats, and the pit entry is really weird. It's kind of got a couple of chicanes in there, so it's definitely not easy, and it's very easy to hit the tires on the way in there.
Here's one of our unorthodox drivers. Bill talked about that team's championship. Unorthodox, unlikely to take it away from them right now. So all Alliance has to do is score 200 points, which sounds like a lot, but it's going to be pretty easy at this track with the number of drivers that they have out there. Callisto, former champion, who I believe it was Callisto actually that clinched his championship at this track over Blake Reynolds that we saw. That had to be an emotional moment for him. Probably good memories here for Little Train as he makes it into the pits successfully. You can see they've got the two different cars that they can race here, the Holden and the Ford. But they are matched sort of, in iRacing terms, NASCAR style. They are exactly the same under the hood, even though they look physically a little bit different here in the sim. Just about 30 seconds left here in the warm-up, then we'll get you to the grid today. They come down that long Conrad Straight, one of the places where they could potentially get a pass in. See the Ford getting ready to try and overtake there as they fly down towards the chase. Chicane was added in terms of this track more relatively recently than the rest of the circuit to make it a little bit safer on the way into Murray's. And that beautiful, iconic sign on the hillside of Mount Panorama that has become a staple here at the Bathurst circuit. There we go. The checkered flag comes out in the warm-up with qualifying having been done already. Obviously, they're not setting it now. It was earlier in the week. And, of course, that starting order includes Eric Smith on the pole with Paul Slavonic starting in second. Ross Banfield will be P3. Then it's Matthew Thunhorst, champion in waiting, starting fourth. Trevor Clement, his challenger, behind him in fifth. Very close together. That could have an effect on things. Kane Lasky starts P6. Wade Hayes in seventh position. Travis Warling starts eighth. Kevin Hill, who Bill mentioned is pretty good, is starting ninth. And Brian Bennett will round out the top 10. Bill?
Lionel Callisto, Steve Driscoll, Ryan Thoma, and Vincent Tomei are the next guy. Patrick Fleming with Ray Partridge after him. Wayne Hutchinson, Jeff Schmeier, 19th to 20th, Adam Hollick, and Dick Mueller.
And then we've got Jess Coleman, Brian Barnes bringing up row 11. Jason Lundy, Nick Kuhn, 23rd and 24th. Kyle Murphy, 25th. Rob Gold, 26th. Bob Beltrami, 27th, Scott Corbin, 28th, Dale Green, 29th, and James Stacey rounding out the rear in 30th.
You can see they're already getting ready to rev their engines. Lights are up. It's the penultimate round, and green flag is out here at Bathurst off the line. It's way better for Eric Smith than it is for the car in P2. Thunhorst following into third. That's Ross Banfield, fourth. That's Slavonic, who got a bad start as they come through Hell Corner. That first turn can sometimes cause drivers to trip up, but it looks clean as they climb up the mountain straight.
Lasky able to pick up a spot, moving up into fifth as he fights still around Trevor Clement. Clement's going to have to surrender that position. He sits back in sixth. Hayes, Warling, and Bennett round out your back half of your top 10.
Mountain always provides a little bit of a scary moment here for the first lap as drivers are all packed together, and the clogged track scenario is very likely. So far, so good through the cutting and up over Quarry. And we've had a problem with Banfield. He looks like he may have hit the wall. He falls back down into sixth.
That was right in front of Matthew Thunhorst, by the way. Exactly what Matthew did not need to have happen. Banfield was racing third at the time.
So he's still going, and he looks like he's not too bad. He is up to pace now down through the dipper as things switch around and they drop in elevation. Getting these heavy cars to woe up a difficult prospect. Out of Forest Elbow they go, Christian, and plunging down the Conrad Straight for the first time.
Yeah, and the big thing about these cars is there's a ton of draft effect down the straight as well. So this is a really good opportunity if you're close to make something happen. Regarding the damage with Banfield, if he didn't get any steering damage, he's probably okay. You can get away with a light tap of the wall, but that's your biggest fear if you're behind that, seeing a driver make a mistake, because there's just nowhere to go.
Hayes was close to him down into the chase. Other than that, the top 5 were all very spread apart. So far, so good here on the first lap of 81, and I think even through the chase, they're looking pretty successful. Didn't see any major offs. Eric Smith, still your leader up front.
As they finish the first lap and we ride on board with that car, just want to mention that Dick Mueller is our big mover. He was able to pick up 4 spots on the very first lap. Nice job from him. He's up to 16th. Chasing Patrick Fleming.
It was Kane Lasky who we're watching. Now we're looking at Mueller down there in the mid-pack. This is a very orderly start. Bill talked about the skill of the drivers. We've been very impressed with how clean things have been this season. Since they've changed a little bit of the rules and the driver standards have been upped. And I have to say that the Majors is really becoming the idealized series that they were looking for it to be. Meanwhile, as we watch up towards the front once again, with our leaders still chasing, it's getting spread out between second and third. Thunhorst is starting to fall back, but again, not really that bad of a situation for him. A podium is very handy indeed.
Don't underestimate the power of peer pressure. You do not want to be the driver that screws up lap 1 in a major event.
Certainly not. And though their understanding, of course, makes everybody look at you slightly differently than how things went last time through. Looking at the battle for 6th now with Banfield starting to plug up the cars behind him. I'm wondering if that damage is affecting him slightly.
Definitely looks like it's hurting him a little bit, or even if the damage itself isn't hurting him, it looks like he might have lost a little bit of confidence because of it, and he just looks kind of out of sorts over the top of the mountain, and it looks like Wade Hayes has got a bit of a run on him here.
That's a lap 2 move from Hayes. If this was farther down the race, he would have made that move. He had a great run on Banfield. Just decided not to push it. Whoops, getting a little bit loose behind him, though. Travis Warling under attack now from Brian Bennett.
Bennett has to back out of it, almost gets pushed off track coming out of the chase. It's into Murray's and finishing up the lap one more time. He looks for a launch off that 90-degree left-hander. I'm not sure that Bennett got one that'll help him make a pass down into hell. And indeed, he's going to back out of it by the time they break for the first turn. Boy, Wade Hayes still putting a lot of pressure on Banfield in front of them, though. As we ride on board with him, this is looking a lot more likely. Bill, he's got the inside coming up to Griffin's, and as they break for the corner, he gets chopped off, and Banfield, instead of turning either him or Hayes, instead finds himself losing not one, but two positions, possibly three. Bennett now looking on the outside of the cutting. Oh, but deep into the corner, there goes Banfield Warling this time. He collects it up. This has been a boon for Hayes, who starts to stretch away from this pack.
Does indeed. Hayes up in 6th. Warling able to get around. We'll see if Banfield is going to hold these guys up. Bennett would sure like to get there. Steve Driscoll, a strong driver, back in 11th as well.
Whew, that certainly was a chain reaction, as poor Ross Banfield, as Christian was saying, seems to have lost some confidence here. Saw a little bit of a blink from Bennett behind him. That won't be good if he's close here through these twisty portions. Ooh, and did something happen to Kane Lasky as well? Meanwhile, Mueller a little bit farther back. Oh, did we lose Mueller? Where is he?
I think he's looped it on his own, and he just got the wall, but it looks like he didn't collect anybody else with him, so it's really good avoidance by everybody behind him there. Looks like just coming over the top of Skyline, he just went in too deep and went around on him.
He was a little bit offline, too. That was L'Herbier that he was fighting with. Maybe that caught him out. Ooh, that was a hard hit on the wall, though. That bodes very poorly for him. In the meantime, I think Kane Lasky has decided to come into the pits due to his poor connection to try and stay out of everybody's way. And
yeah, it happened in Forest Elbow. The car blinked away, and then all the way down the after the straight out of the Forest Elbow, he was really slow. I don't think he's feeling good. Kevin Hill had an off through the chase. He's losing positions as well.
I was going to say that's that netcode problem kicked things off with Toma there in 10th because Kevin Hill and Lionel Callisto are right behind him. They're side by side with three grouped together very closely coming up to Griffin's Bend. They're going to have to sort this out soon. And going way wide, Toma unfortunately looked like he had it under wraps, but Kevin Hill not going to let him claim that position quite yet.
They're able to get in there and get around Callisto as he was watching all of that.
Yeah, and you do not want to be on the outside in Griffin's because the track just drops away, and that was something I found in my race earlier. The first time I was kind of pushed too wide through that corner, you realize it, and we saw there a couple of guys, you go in like you've got the line, but there's just no grip out there, so being on the inside through there is critical.
Plenty of these Alliance drivers, including Callisto, up towards the top, looking more and more likely they're going to clinch that team's championship, which is just as important as that driver's championship in this series. You need a steeped team to be able to be up at the top. It's Chase and Herbier, one of the Kinetic drivers. They were the new ones last season, and this season returned, but could not quite take the championship away from the team that has been the most dominant in the series history here in the majors.
Yeah, I talked about it while going over the points. The Alliance has Thunhorst and Clement sitting 1-2. And they're deep, though. It just takes them two. And it's not only the 5 that count, but they go as far as like 6 and 7. Well, they'll swap drivers in. It's a real team effort.
Certainly, too. Callisto's gotten a lot closer to Herbier, and he almost thought about a move down into Murray's, but it didn't go off. He's going to get a second chance here, Christian, as he comes down to the inside of Hell Bend.
Yeah, it is really tricky to pull this off here because, again, the same kind of thing. It's the braking is so critical, and it's just about possible to stay too wide, but it's hard to do it.
Looks like he pulled it off. Herbier could have had an answer since he could have pulled the over-under climbing up the mountain straight. In fact, he takes a little bit of a peek on the braking into Griffin's. Well, and he's going to get another shot here. Third try is a charm. Callisto, who goes too deep into Griffin's, allows Herbier to reclaim P12.
It's, again, the same kind of thing. Is that just if you just wash out wide and you get onto that outside edge, there's just no grip out there.
Boy, he is not done with him. Look at him climb all over the back. Let's stick with this for now. It's the closest fight we've got in the front group. This almost reminds me a little bit of NASCAR here, Christian, the way that they follow so closely, but these cars are tall. I could never see around the car in front.
Yeah, it is difficult, and that's something you got to watch out for, especially coming over the top of the mountain, is if the guy ahead of you makes a mistake, you don't want to be drawn into that same mistake. It's very easy to do, and especially with the wall so close, if you just offset a little bit and he's tight to the wall, you'll be in the wall. So it's the thing is, you know that you can't pass on the mountain, so you just need to stay close so that then you have an opportunity down Conrad.
Doesn't quite get it, does Lionel Callisto. He's going to have to work a little bit harder than that. We're only on lap 5 out of 81. We're ways out from any potential opportunities for pit stops here. Through the chase one more time. Sounds like we've got some action a little bit farther down. Bill, what's been going on in the mid-pack there?
This is a great 5-car battle. Leading the train is Wayne Hutchinson, but then we got our hard charger, Jason Lundy. Lundy is up 7 spots. He started in 23rd. He's racing now in 16th, and he's all over the back of Hutchinson. But it's not just that. Jeff Smyer's in this mix as well, Adam Hollick, and then the last car in the train, Nick Kuhn, who is up 5 spots himself. Great racing. Watch what's going to happen here as they get through this first corner, as they come down the straight. It really heated up last time. Watch for the car number 653 to make a move.
He's looking very good, and Christian mentioned the slipstream is strong. In fact, it's strong enough that he is going to get to the inside as they come over the jump under the Petters sign. And now as they break for the corner, Lundy managed to get fully past. Can he keep it tucked into the apex? Just barely over Wayne Hutchison. That gives Lundy 15th position. A little bit of a look on the way up into the cutting, but unfortunately, Hutchison has no response. Now, as this has been happening, Slavonics actually closed in on Smith, the leader. Bill, I'm wondering if doing research on V8 supercar racing does anything for your skill level in them, because, well, Paul wrote a book about these cars, so I don't know, maybe he learned something along the way.
Talking about a guy who wrote the book on it, indeed. You know, we've been looking at Slavonic. We have the privilege of covering another race, the Autobahn Series, on Monday nights here on GSRC, where Slavonic has been really hot of late. He talked about it. In fact, he races in the AM class in that series, and he's doing so well, they're probably going to promote him out of it. He is really doing great right now, racing in second and following Smith, not losing any ground.
He's got just about a second gap between himself and the number 32. Thunhorst behind is just over 2 seconds back in the 98. So he's been keeping them within range, but he's not nearly as close as Paul is to Eric.
You know, I don't want to jinx this. How many races have we called here on GSRC at Bathurst that are just a mess? How wonderfully clean this race has been.
Yeah, Lasky's the only one that's still in the pits right now. We've had Coleman, Mueller, and Partridge visit the pits. Now, I think at least one of them started from pit lane. I'd have to do some checking on that, but I saw someone exiting out of there once they got off the grid. We watch this battle for fourth. This is Clement just ahead of Wade Hayes. One of our kinetic cars, Hayes, trying to chase down Trevor. This is becoming something of a rivalry, Kinetic and the Alliance team, so I don't think he'll care too much about denying Clement a championship by getting by him.
He has to be careful, though, because if he makes a mistake with the pass, he's got two others waiting right behind him to pounce.
That's Warling in the unorthodox car that's bright purple. You can't miss it. And then it's another Alliance car, Bennett, behind him.
Like Wade actually lost a little bit across the top of the mountain there. Yep, looks a little bit bigger now, but we'll see if he can't close it up on the downhill.
All of them accordioning back together as they go through the dipper, and then a few more S's before you have to low the car up a very steep drop down here in the 4-7. You can really see from the on-car here just how much it crests over there, tires locking up. And that makes me curious, Christian, can you overheat the tires by locking them up too much, or maybe wheel spin off the corners?
Yeah, I definitely struggled a lot more with front tires than rears. I know a couple of guys looked like they were sliding around on rears, just kind of getting the power down, but my biggest thing was exactly like that in corners like Forest Elbow, where it's all downhill and it's so hard to get the car stopped. And I struggled the first two runs of the race just kind of trying to get off the front tires, and the balance really only came to me in the second half of the race because of that.
Are you able to bring the tires back over a stint, or is it a case of once they're gone, they're gone?
You can bring them back a little bit, but you have to be very mindful of kind of your braking zones, and you have to consciously pull them back to have any chance of bringing them back.
It got really close towards the end of the lap between Hayes and Warling's looking good coming up the mountain straight. Is the unorthodox driver going to have anything for the kinetic car? The car of Wade Hayes goes to the middle, but not far enough to the inside, because here comes Warling managing to get his nose in. All coming onto the binders, and they bang doors coming through Griffin's Bend. Another little shove as Wade Hayes is unceremoniously displaced from that 5th position.
Yeah, it looked like Wade there kind of made the decision. Well, he made the decision or realized he didn't want to be out wide and tried to really kind of pinch down, and it just made it a little tight. I feel like it's really a racing deal there. It's tricky to get two cars side by side through there, and especially as you get on the power, you do always kind of get that flick with the rear end coming out like Warling had there. So, kind of think no harm done.
At the same time that happened, Kalisto lost 2 positions in one corner, and once again, it was Griffin's Bend Herbier and Tolma both snuck through when he went wide at that corner. It seems like that is Callisto's Achilles heel. He's now down to 13th.
Yeah, and if you miss the braking point for that corner, Warling's got super deep in the forest elbow.
And Herbier has lost the car down through the dipper, and that's going to give the spot right back to Callisto, who himself was trying to keep the car under control. Can we get an onboard of either one of them on that? Going to watch from Herbier's perspective here. Expect to get some firewood because he is going to be sawing logs.
I don't know if he got any wall. I think he kept that away from the wall.
He was clean. Well, his pants weren't probably clean after that. Wow. Only so many times you can get away with something like that. So that means that Little Train is back up to 12th, or Herbier falls to 13th.
It's a hell of a moment through there. You really don't want to have that happen more than once.
I think we had a change of position a little bit farther down the order. Dale Green, James Stacy out of the chase. Looks like actually it was Dale Green overshooting the chase. I expected that we would see that a whole lot more. Both cars went off in this process, and they're still close together, though.
Don't need to go there. We were also watching that battle with Warling and Hayes and Bennett. Warling was out in front, but now Bennett has got 5th position back.
Warling looks like he's just struggling a little bit with balance. It kind of looks like he's struggling with kind of getting off the front tires a little bit. And saw him last lap when Herbier was having his huge moment. Warling went super deep into Forest Elbow, and I really thought he was going to get the outside wall, but he just kept it off it.
Yeah, and we hear a lot about comparing these cars to stock cars, American stock cars, and oval racing, just because of the size and the tires and everything. But what about setup-wise? Does that have a lot of effect on how they perform over the course of a stint? Is it important to really get that dialed in so that it's balanced over the long term?
This car seems really, really sensitive to setup, but in kind of a strange way. It doesn't really feel like there's a huge amount of raw pace to be had out of it, but there's maybe just a lot of comfort that you can gain, especially on the brakes. And it seems like if you don't quite have the balance right, you just can't get any performance out of the car, and it's really frustrating as well. That's the thing, because you can run in practice and you'd be really happy with it, and then in the race you're suddenly not.
We're going to see a replay here of Nick Kuhn through the dipper. The 19 was not as lucky as what we saw with Herbier. Wow, that was a hard hit. You could see he just stayed off to the side to let the field go because he knew he was limping after that.
Yeah, it looks like he's got some serious steering damage there.
He's way too early for a scheduled stop, so this is going to be an extra pit stop added to his strategy. No cautions here.
We've just had a wreck with Clement going into Griffins.
Oh,
I think he had the left sides off in the grass when he's under braking. The car just...
Well, here's what's weird is we already had Bennett to his side. Bennett was way too far back to attempt to pass. It's almost like he knew something was going to happen here, and he had to save the car as well, trying to avoid that mess, which lost him positions. Both Hayes and Warling got by. Why was he that far over? Was he going to be given the position? You would expect that Clement would be the one that you would want to gift a position with him fighting for the championship.
And he was so far over as well when he was on, like, he was completely on the grass with his left sides when he hit the brakes.
Well, that's one of the strangest mysteries we've seen here.
I want to drill down a little big picture now. I talked about it in the opening. Travis Warling, who sits 5th in the Drivers' Championship, I think still has the shot to get second position. He's only back by about 170 points behind Clement, and Clement just had a big off. Warling now up to 4th.
Clement just got passed by Banfield, so Trevor is limping. He might actually have to come in as well to take an extra stop this time just to get his spare car. Oh, and he blew the engine. That was Trevor Clement we just saw on screen in a puff of smoke. He's going to try and limp it home. He's cutting across the course. I don't know that he can drift it close enough. In fact, he's got to try and find a gap. There he goes, right there. But he's going to have to tow it in the last few feet.
I think he might just roll it into pit lane, but he's at least 5 laps too early to really be able to make this without having an extra stop thrown in.
And frankly, the way that things have to go for Thunhorst to clinch, I'd say we can effectively say that Thunhorst is now your champion.
Yeah, they're fitting the crowd right now.
It won't be official until we get to lap 65, and Thunhorst has got to there. Once he's finished that, he will get the points for finishing enough of the race to be considered a finisher in this race. Well, it's sad to see that happen this early. Trevor is sitting in his stall, I believe, either waiting for the last of the tow or at least getting repairs. So maybe he's not taking his spare car now. This is our leader up at the top. We haven't watched him a whole lot, but Eric Smith still being chased by Slavonic. Still within about a second. In fact, little has changed since we last looked here. You can see in the left-hand tower that Thunhorst is also still at 2 seconds behind Slavonic.
Yeah, and these guys don't really need to push too much. I mean, they're building a big gap back to 4th. They've got about 12 seconds now down to Travis, so they're kind of running a good pace and they're not troubling each other. It's probably not time to go yet for these guys.
Down in 8th position, keep an eye on Kevin Hill. Steve Driscoll is close behind, and they've also got Ryan Toma in the popcorn position. If they start fighting, Ryan can easily make this a 3-car battle. They're going to go through the chase chicane. You can see how much curb they're taking with these cars. And in real life, we see these cars, the supercars, just bound over curbs a lot of times. But in my short time driving these things, Christian, I found that they were just a nightmare to handle over the curbs. How do you get it to be able to go over those things?
Well, to be honest, it's one of the things that I really struggled with because I thought the exact same thing. I see the real-life guys fly over the curbs with these cars, and yet this version is particularly averse to them, it seems. And if anybody does know how to get them over curbs, reach out and let me know, because I'd like to know as well.
I'm not sure you'll get much help on that one with your skill. Meanwhile, we got a pass on Driscoll. Ryan Toma to the inside, and once again, the outside line through Griffin's Bend is just a death knell. If you want to keep that spot, Driscoll falls to 10th.
This has been a great battle. I've been watching it. Even Hill was battling with his teammate Driscoll for a long time. They were racing really tough. Toma now gets between those two drivers, the two unorthodox drivers.
This has been some great racing here at the start. Just been in small little groups we've been seeing. Not really a lot of huge packs as everybody kind of gets their own group. We jump up to the top one here with Travis Warling still ahead of Hayes and Bennett. And it looks like Clement has just disconnected. That is his day officially done now. And he will not score points for today.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Thunhorst now needs to score any points. If they were both to get 0, I think they'd have enough.
Oh, Vincent Lherbier does not like the dipper.
Great job from Fleming to get around him. We didn't get around him.
Oh, who was that nearly got him? Is that Barnes? Is that the popsicle car? I know it doesn't say popsicle, but it'll always be the popsicle car to me. Here's the kinetic driver. Oh, it was a lot more unstable this time. He cut the course and unfortunately couldn't stay away from the wall.
That's
he
Fleming.
did get hit, though.
That's Fleming who got him.
Yeah.
He said the first time you just kind of only want to have that moment once, and That's exactly why the second time it happens, it will bite you.
Ooh, great heads up from the Dog Bear driver, Brian Barnes. Just placed himself perfectly to sneak through. Wonder if he had a spotter there to help him know which way to go. The lead has since come down. This is the first time we've seen it close in. And it is Paul Slavonic now within half a second of Eric Smith. Interestingly, every once in a while we get drivers from Australia racing here in the Americas region. As another problem with Smith, all the way off course, coming through McPhillamy Park. How did he gather that back together?
He was lucky with that curb there that has a tendency to kind of fire you back to the left. It almost looked like he went so wide that he went completely over it, but now he's got Slavonic right behind him, and Thunhorst is playing himself into this as well.
I kind of wonder if Matthew Thunhorst, now knowing that Clement has had his issues, that he can race without the pressure of having to keep it clean. He can go out there and have a little fun.
It's a good question. He's got the most wins of anybody currently this season, in the Americas region at least. Christian's domination notwithstanding.
He's got 1,000 points in his last 2 races. He's 500 and 500 for Thunhorst.
I'm glad you pointed that out, Batman. I was going to say something.
Well, that's why I specified the Americas region. But yeah, this is the closest we've seen it. And as this is getting closer, I'm not sure that we really need to go to the replay, but Dale Green unfortunately had a bit of a spin in turn 1 in Hill Corner. Just nudged the wall, not very hard, and he's back going in 23rd. Oh, and what's going on with Smith off of Hell Corner here right now?
Yeah, he's
Looks
about
like that
to
one's
lose.
proving to be
Here
tough.
comes Slavonic.
Slavonic has got a good run, but he's going to have to go the long way around, and I don't think that's going to work. In fact, he knows it. He gets it tucked back into the racing line. This is great news for Thunhorst. He's watching this and bringing it down to about a second and a half behind these two.
Yeah, Slavonic was wise to not being stuck on the outside there.
Big wheel spin from the 528 coming off of the cutting, and that gives away all the time he just gained. Now, again, I'll have to check stats. I'm pretty sure if Slavonic is able to get a win, this should be his first win ever in the major series.
Boy, I would think so. Yeah, I think that's a safe assumption.
That would be fantastic. Oh man, the cars are looking like they are getting slippery.
Smith really wiggling that thing.
We're seeing more and more mistakes. And if we bring up the weather conditions, it's up to 110 degrees Fahrenheit out on track right now. It's getting pretty greasy.
And it's going to keep getting hotter as well. It's going to get even hotter than that. I expect we'll see 130 by the end, which sounds crazy, but it really gets that hot.
What if we could glance at Bennett, because he's got Wade Hayes on the ropes here.
If he wants him, that's the question.
He's closing in. Nope, he doesn't want it quite yet. It's difficult going single file down into the braking for the chase. Maybe setting him up for the run off the corner. His big wheel spin from Wade Hayes, the 33, under threat once again. He holds off to the left side, forcing Bennett to take the racing line. And he breaks late into Murray's corner, keeps it to the outside, but just can't get the run off of it.
It's strangely difficult to actually get a move done down into the chase. You would think with Conrad you had that whole straight to really get a move done, but the final corner and then into Hell and Griffins are actually a little bit easier to kind of get the positioning you need to be able to execute a pass.
Right on board. Driver's probably going to want to put that get that tear off checked in their F5 box when they take their pit stop. You can see just how grimy it's getting on these long stints in these cars, especially chasing this close behind Hayes. Ooh, there's a big lockup. But still, along the mountain, it is so difficult to get side by side. Hayes not giving it up yet.
And that's kind of the thing right there, is that you know how difficult it is to be passed on the mountain, so you've got to not let yourself get drawn into making mistakes like that, because even there, we saw he went really deep into the corner, but there's just no space for Bennett to get by him. So your big thing when you're in this kind of scenario is to just kind of accept maybe the guy behind you is quicker, but as long as you don't make mistakes, there's nowhere around here he's going to be able to pass you.
Speaking of passing, Thunhorse might even be thinking about that, because he's gotten it down to a half a second. Slavonic had regained his gap. It was down to 0.4 momentarily. So they're now all just about equidistant apart between first, second, and third. Ooh, make that closer from first to second, though. Slavonic, incredible through the chase. He cut it down in half between himself and Smith.
Smith definitely looks like he's struggling a bit here, but it's important not to underestimate the amount of draft effect that the two behind have, and especially with Thunhorse now being kind of the tail car here, it's strangely quite easy for the guys behind to stay with them, because again, you can't pass across the top of the mountain, so as long as you stay close, you get the draft down the straight, so you just constantly get pulled up to the leader. It's so hard to break away as the leader here.
Christian, it's going to be hard for these guys to stay out and run extra laps on these tires. Seems like it's going to take a lot of discipline to not come in at the first opportunity to get fresh rubber.
Yeah, that's the other thing as well. You definitely don't want to come in too soon, because you'll come out in amongst traffic, and that'll slow you down. It's much easier if you're the following cars. If you're the leader, everybody's just going to judge off of you, and the following cars can they could just basically stay out as long as you do, or they can undercut you, and there's not a great deal you can do as the leader. It sounds weird to say it's a bit of a disadvantage, but I really felt like it was in my race earlier, because you just don't really have as much control over the race as you would in, say, something else.
Well, those three cars up front, Smith, Slavonic, and Thunhorst, Smith seems to be having the most trouble with what's going on right now. He's really working hard.
The weight of the crown weighs heavy on the king, I suppose. And Eric Smith, just to give you an idea, was running pretty consistently in 208s, high 208s, low 209s the first few laps. Well, the last four have been three out of them have been in the 210s. He's definitely dropping pace, and we're still only about 3/4 of the way through this stint.
Yeah, I
Boy,
suspect
that
they've
looked
got.
like a good run, though.
I was going to say, I suspect they've got at least 4 to 5 more laps on these before they pit, at the very earliest.
Boy, Smith collected himself as I was talking, and is now a full second ahead of Slavonic. It's great seeing us get a battle up here at the front to really contend with. Sometimes, especially in these road races, the skilled drivers are able to run away. And one note I was going to make a little bit earlier is about the lack of Australian drivers that we have here, since we tend to get at least 1 or 2, even in the pro splits here in the Americas. But we see no specialists that usually show up here in Bathurst, showing up here in the Americas region at least. Maybe they all flocked over to the international split on Friday.
We're looking at this Banfield Hill battle that's been going on. Hill has been working on him for a long time, but try as he might, he just can't get around Banfield. Now remember, Banfield qualified in 3rd. He had that issue. I thought the car is damaged, and I think maybe he's a little bit off pace right now. Hill just has been trying, cannot pick up that 7th position.
I'm thinking Banfield's really got to make sure that he doesn't have that spare car checked, unless the damage is really hurting him. Because at this point, he's still in 7th, Bill. I would, you keep talking about Callisto's method. That's what we need to call it. The Callisto method really needs to apply here. He's not in a dire situation. He's got to hold on to that.
Yeah, you do not want to use your spare car unless you absolutely need to do it. Can we go ahead and put the camera on James Stacy? He's back here in 19th race and all by himself. James, you're up 11 spots. You're one of our hard chargers. Nicely done. You started in 30th. Nobody around you right now. You got 2 seconds to get to Beltrami, and you have the top sportsman behind you of Kyle Murphy, but good run from you.
Yeah, the O2 looking pretty solid, at least just cruising around and ticking off the laps. Wonder how close we are to get... Oh, actually, we got to go back to the lead because Paul Slavonic's got to run on Eric Smith as they come down to Murray's. This is the first time we've seen him fully side by side. And actually, he might get the good launch off of the final corner, almost being squeezed off as Eric Smith pulls over to try and get as wide of an entry as he can into Hell Corner. Just behind them, Matthew Thunhorst could be a thorn in the side of Slavonic. A crossover move as Eric Smith defends the inside coming up to Griffin's Bend. Slavonic last got his best run here. This is an even better run as they come together, banging doors, and eventually he decides it is not worth this risk. Maybe another over-under attempt, but it's not meant to be. I think these guys have got the spirit of supercar racing nailed down here.
That was
No
a
doubt.
little bit of Slavonic trying to pin Smith down, and Smith trying to get as much angle into that corner as he could.
Smith starting to spin the tires coming out of the cutting. Slavonic couldn't do anything with that. Thunhorst has got to be careful if these two get a little bit too feisty. He's now closed in to within 0.3 of a second. He has no recourse if they mess up here along the mountain. Plunging through the dipper and towards Forest Elbow. Slavonic seems to love the part coming up after this, after the Conrad, through the chase. We've seen him close in multiple times. Let's watch, because he's fallen back, Bill, to about 0.5 of a second. I'm curious to see if that comes down once again.
I think Slavonic thinks that if I can get around Smith, I can leave him behind now. I think he really feels that he's faster, and he will be able to drop him. I don't know if he's going to be able to drop Thunhorst. Thunhorst seems pretty good. He was able to close the gap here, but this is where he's really strong out of the chase. He'll be good through these two 90-degree left-handers. Let's see if he makes another run after he gets through hell.
Smith stayed defensive into the chase even. And car now looking unsteady under braking as well. Just all through the corner. That thing is diabolical. Slavonic knows it. He's had a windshield full of that number 32 slipping all over the road. Could he finally get himself the inside line? Or maybe he doesn't need the inside line, because he's going to have a good run here. He'll have the slipstream as well as a little bit of better grip accelerating off the corner, but once again, not able to get to the inside. Smith just barely holding with him, and he's going to give it a try. That old college try around the outside of Griffin's Bend. It just can't work quite yet.
It's just not enough grip out there on that outside line, and Smith knows it too. That's why he's doesn't seem really that concerned about the 90-degree left-handers. As long as he can maintain having the inside, he knows that Slavonic's not going to be able to pass him, and that's where I think Slavonic needs to maybe try something down into the chase instead of waiting along Conrad. I feel like you see Smith goes defensive, and it gives him a bit of an opportunity to do something there. And I think he really needs to push the issue in that final sector.
I agree. If he couldn't get him that time, I don't think he's going to get him. You can't get worse of an exit out of that first corner than Smith had there, and he still couldn't make the pass. So let's try something
change
different.
for P8. Kevin Hill lost out to Toma through the cutting. We got the replay here. This was all Hill's mistake. It's uphill left-hander. This is another one of those corners I felt was incredibly tough, Christian, is the cutting's braking zone.
Yeah, it's just super hard to get the car stopped and turned in, and honestly, when I was practicing for qualifying, it was the most frustrating corner. As you can see there, it just gets it a little bit too late, and it's another one of those corners where it just seems like there's nothing on the outside. You brake a bit too late, you end up out wide, and the car just refuses to turn in.
Hill had been chasing Banfield, made a stab at Banfield into Murray's. It didn't work, lost a lot of momentum, and that's what allowed Toma to get into the mix. So now Hill, who was looking to get 7th, is back in 9th.
All right, who dares start to pit now that we are getting into the window? The front runners do not. They stay out. as Smith leads Slavonic up the hill one more time. And Slavonic not as close as we've seen the past few laps, so doubt we'll see another exciting moment like we saw before. In fact, yeah, you see them all getting back in line. Oh, maybe we'll finally get it because they're a little bit wide. Eric Smith overshooting Griffin's Bend, and they come together, both of them slamming into the wall. Thunhorse checking up to stay out of it as Eric Smith gets turned around. Slavonic continues on, and now it looks like Smith is stuck with no place to go.
Slavonic's got problems as well. He's just let Thunhorse pass for the lead. Looks like he's got broken steering.
Wow. You got to take it when it comes, but miscommunication, and they tangle. Smith is not going to be happy about that one.
Take a look for the guy who had the best view in the house.
It might be October, but Christmas keeps coming earlier and earlier, Bill, especially for Thunhorse today. Gift wrapped it.
Well, not only do the two cars in front of him get together, but he's right behind him on this narrow racetrack. He could have easily been caught up in that one.
Yeah, but the space that he gave them, we saw him backing out of it too.
Uh-huh.
And just wisdom there. That is a champion in the making right there. That is a brilliant bit of driving from the 98 to just see what's coming. And the gap back to Slavonic now pretty wide, with the next car down being Warling. I believe we did see that it was a tow for Smith, not willing to try and pull in Austin Powers to get it turned forward and get back to the pits.
It's just unfortunate, really, and kind of how that played out.
Well, speaking of being smart enough to wreck the car in the pit window.
There you go.
There you go, Bill.
That's how you do it.
And we have a kinetic car coming in. That's Wade Hayes as well. Meanwhile, they limp up to the damaged car of Eric Smith that we just saw on the camera as it flew past him. We're now up to 10:30 a.m. virtual standard time. Wonder if well, I guess Slavonic's probably going to take his spare car unless he feels like trying to take the repairs to get back out there. Here's an Alliance car in. It looks like that was Little Train. So I'm curious to see if Warling could maybe potentially try and jump Slavonic, depending on if he gets repairs.
I think Slavonic will definitely have to take his fast repair if he wants to stay in this race. I do kind of feel like he is still in play. I know he's going to have lost a lot of time because obviously he had to limp all the way back around to the pits, but he was still able to do it, and that obviously, unfortunately, Eric Smith wasn't. But it still means that he could, if he does have the pace, maybe play himself back in. There's still a long way to go.
Hayes is back out ahead of him. Had a shorter stop, curiously. Ooh, but Hayes was wide coming up through Griffin's Bend. A lot of cars towards the back are stopping early. No risk for them worrying about traffic. Just get in, get some tires, and hope that maybe you can jump someone ahead.
Yeah, exactly that. And I mean, I think if you're in traffic anyway, what's the risk, right? You're pitting from traffic. What's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to come out in traffic? Well, you were there anyway. So it definitely makes sense to do that, and kind of being regimented about how you run the race. And if you've got this plan in your mind about doing 21 laps in 20, you might as well stick to it. It stops you getting thrown off balance.
Speaking of being disciplined, Thunhorst comes in, and I kind of wonder actually if this is a response to Slavonic pitting, because he did get by, as you mentioned, but like you said, Slavonic, if he rifles off some good laps, he could try and catch back up the Thunhorst and repass for the lead if they were on drastically different stop schedules.
It was about a 4-second difference between Thunhorst and Slavonic when they came in.
Yeah, so he had
Warling
to respond.
decides to stay out, yeah. Assuming Slavonic's car is in good shape.
I have to imagine, like Christian said, he had to have taken that spare car. Yeah, you can see him on screen, and that it looks perfectly normal. So I'm guessing he popped a fresh one in. Thunhorst still getting fuel. Now he is in and out.
Yeah, so you can see that Slavonic still in play. He's lost time, but he's still there.
But now that Thunhorst has track position, though, we saw him close on the back of Slavonic, and I'm curious if that was due to Smith holding up Slavonic, or if Thunhorst was truly faster.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We don't know how much pace Slavonic had when he was stuck behind Eric for as long as he was, and this will really kind of show us if he does have more raw speed than Thunhorst. And that's the other thing. If you're Thunhorst, what do you do here? You know that if you just make it to lap 65, then you've basically got it sewn up. But at the same time, you always want to win races, so I expect that he'll not make it easy if Slavonic does get there.
Meanwhile, we've jumped back to Toma here, one of the drivers yet to pit, sandwiched between Banfield and Hill. They should be coming in, if not this time, by the next lap.
And our leader is
Toma being closed up upon by Hill. Yeah, Warling looks like he came in, as Bill said. Oh,
So
all
Brian
three stay
Bennett.
out.
Brian Bennett, the old timer, going to stay out there.
Go long, and then have a shorter final stint with fresher tires towards the end, maybe?
Really fast at the end.
And also that's when the track will be at its absolute hottest as well, so kind of having less laps on your tires at that point is going to help you, especially if you have to fight people.
It's already up to 114 degrees Fahrenheit here. It was, maybe about 20 minutes ago we looked and it was 110. Especially since the most recent update on iRacing to the weather and the surface model of the track, it tends to heat up a lot slower, so that's a bit shocking to see it come up 4 degrees that quickly.
Good battle for second right now between some cars that are on really old tires. This is Banfield with Toma and Hill in the mix.
As Banfield was a little bit slow coming up and over into Frog Hollow. Now it's a little bit quicker swinging through the left-handers of the various parks, culminating in McPhillamy. It's not just these three. Bennett, you mentioned, yet to pit. Driscoll needs to come in. Lundy. Stacy needs to take a stop. Other than that, everybody behind them has taken one. Thunhorst with about a 3-second gap over Wade Hayes. When it all slides out, I think Hayes should be our effective second-place driver.
And Hayes has actually made up a lot of time there, because I believe before they pitted, it was about a 10-second gap back to that second group, and now Hayes is within 5.
Yeah, I think you're right. So maybe Hayes is our sleeper today that could potentially upset things. Bennett, in the meantime, now trundling down pit lane. Banfield comes in, but Banfield screws up the pit entry. In fact, he messes it up in a big way. Going to lose a position and make things tight with the car of Steve Driscoll, who eventually settles that, and they both get in.
I'm wondering if he's going to have an unsafe pit entry for that.
Insult to injury if that's the case.
I mean, he was well away from the line, and at other tracks where they've got this kind of pit road entry, you can get that. Obviously, it was no advantage to him to have this, but that would really sting if it did give him that.
Well, I mean, it's not inaccurate to say it's an unsafe pit entry.
True.
He was sliding all over the place, just didn't wind up hitting anything. Now, Kevin Hill and Jason Lundy have stayed out.
That's right, baby.
Wow. There's not fuel map settings in these cars, are there?
Not that I know of.
Okay, the 52 and the 653, who were still on the lead lap, so This is, they have to come in this next time by unless my timing and scoring. No, it's not line because Thunhorst is behind them.
Yep.
In fact, this is bad news for Thunhorst because I think this is the first time he'll be catching traffic on track.
They might pit right as he kind of gets to them, though.
He's right behind Lundy. It's within a second now. 2-lap-old tires versus 24-lap-old tires, especially over this portion of the track. Wow, you can see just how much more confident he is with the grip braking heavily downhill.
The 24-lap-old tires, they're going to be pretty unhappy at this point for sure.
Now, Lundy was farther down the order, but Hill was relatively close. He was racing inside the top 10. In fact, coming in right now.
There we go. Lundy's not going to fight it too hard. He's going to allow Thunhorst to slip through. Hill's already hit pit lane. And I think that did hold up Thunhorst a little bit. It's less than 3 seconds between Hayes and Matthew.
I'm impressed by Wade Hayes' pace. He's been really strong, and he might have something for him here.
Well, looking at stop times though, Hayes' stop was 33 seconds compared to Slavonic was 39. Some of these guys were 44 seconds, so he might be playing some tricks here.
Where is Hill going to come out as well? The 52 taking fuel and tires. And I'm watching the clock on his. There is some variance between the drivers on their pit stops just due to the open nature of the multiple stops that they have available. Hill's going very long, though, so clearly looking to run long stints like he just did, and he will return. And maybe 8th place. He's going to have Steve Driscoll with him. Just ahead of Driscoll.
Driscoll might have a run here, though. He's going to be close.
How defensive does Hill go? He's a little bit off the racing line, but not heavily defensive. And as they break, he doesn't need to worry. He stays ahead.
Nice to have a teammate behind you.
See Dick Mueller in the pits. Is this scheduled? It's a second stop. I think Mueller was one of the ones we saw have an incident early on, was it not?
Yeah, he did. I'm thinking that perhaps this is just an offset on schedule stop.
Or did he just drive through? I don't think he's... No, he did stop. No, he is back out. All right, our new leader after the pit stops is Matthew Thunhorst, taking advantage of Paul Slavonic and Eric Smith coming together. For fans of Eric Smith, he is currently in 20th. Laps is a long time, so I wouldn't be too surprised if he managed to get back up into the top 5 through everything. He's on the lead lap.
And we've seen he's got really strong pace as well, so the pace is definitely there to do it. It's just whether he'll have enough time. He's significantly far back. He lost a lot of time having to take that tow.
In fact, we have no cars that have gone a lap down yet. We might soon because Ray Partridge is being caught by Thunhorst. This is not what Matthew wants right now. Hayes continues to chip away. It's 1.7 seconds between them. The Midwest driver doing everything he can to try and chase down the Plains driver. Get himself a win today. Deny Thunhorst the pride of taking a championship and victory in the same day.
Been watching the driver, Eric Smith. He's now up to 19th. He just got around Rob Gall. Eric's got plenty of time to make up for his earlier mistake.
That's one more down. 2 seconds up to the salami. Haven't talked about Bob really at all this race other than the grid.
Our hard charger, up 9 spots.
Sitting in 18th, qualified 27th. At least in this series, you don't have to worry about fake hard chargers, Bill.
You don't.
Everybody
Everybody gets a qualifying time, or you're not in this split.
Up and around Griffin's Bend. Smith had trouble through that corner a number of times. Meanwhile, looking back up at Kevin Hill ever since his pit stop, Driscoll has not been able to pester him anymore. He's fallen back to about 1.2 seconds. Hill, the latest of everybody out here in terms of pitting on the first stint.
I'm curious as to what his plans are with that. Because if he can really go that long, then that kind of brings into question what he's going to do towards race end. I'm wondering if he's going to do 2 long stops, well, 2 long stints to start the race when it's kind of a little bit colder, and then he'll have 2 much shorter stints at the end when the track's a lot harder. It might really help him out.
Christian, what are the rules for tires? Can you take tire and fuel at the same time in these cars, like just a basic NASCAR stop?
Yeah, the tires and fuel are all done at the same time, and the fuel is the limiting factor in the pit stop. So every time you want to take tires.
So sad news for fans of Trevor Clement. I think he did have plans to try and continue on, but it sounds like he did indeed forget to check or uncheck. No, actually check, I should say. Even confused myself. His spare car. So he was locked into an engine change, which is lengthy here in iRacing. And so that is why he decided to just call it a day. He knew that at that point it was pretty much day over for him on trying to go for the championship. But with the first set of pit stops done, it's time for a short break here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Our leader is still Matthew Thunhorst. We'll come back from this for the Bathurst 500 and its final 2/3. Welcome back to Mount Panorama Circuit, most known as Bathurst by many fans, but up at the top, the king of the mountain currently is Matthew Thunhorst. And while we were gone, there was some interesting discussion about pit strategy. But before we get to that, you can see we had some passes, some of which you may have seen on screen. This one is between Warling and Bennett, who simply had a good run here out of Hell Corner. Christian, you seem to think that Warling is not looking that comfortable right now.
Yeah, in his first run, he looked like he was kind of sliding the rears a bit more than the other guys around him. And I think with that kind of style, the hotter the track gets, the harder that's gonna hurt him, really. So I think he's going to struggle a little bit. If he's already loose now, he's going to be really, really loose at the race end.
Curiously, when we were on board, we saw Warling tap the brakes on the straight. That's usually a sign to the car behind that you're going to let them through. So he actually signaled to Bennett that he wanted him to go by on that straight. Apparently, supposedly, it looked like.
Yeah, and those guys have got quite a big gap, actually, back to Callisto. So maybe it just makes sense for Warling to kind of let this one go.
Bennett and Warling had been together the whole race in their two-car battle that used to be a three-car battle that included Wade Hayes. But Hayes did something tricky during pit stops that left them behind, and now, with that lighter car, Hayes is right behind Thunhorst.
Yeah, it seems we were discussing that, Bill, that it looks like he's short-filled compared to most around him, including Thunhorst, though not as drastically. And I kind of wonder if that is what is allowing him to be quicker than Thunhorst right now.
Yeah, I don't blame him. I've been watching the battle that he was in. I think he was faster than Bennett and Warling, but they've kept getting around him during the draft. So I think he's trying to see if he can just run away from him and leave him behind. Doesn't have to worry about for the remainder of what we got 51 laps to go. But he's quicker now. He might even get Thunhorst, but he'll have to come in a lot sooner than Matthew will.
As we were on break as well, Eric Smith has managed to get up to 16th. He went by a whole bunch of cars. Dick Mueller, Adam Halleck, and I think he overtook Brian Barnes as well. He's got another 3 seconds up to Jason Lundy. It's not over for him. Smith is about a minute 18 behind Thunhorst. And impressively, that's only half a lap.
Remember, he was the fastest driver to put down a qualifying time all week long. So he's got a clean car. He's got plenty of time to do it. I think he could get up.
Our lead is changing hands. Thunhorst slowed on the front stretch, and Wade Hayes has been let by. Now, we were just talking about strategy. Is this his team saying, don't fight him, we're on the better strategy, let him through? Look at this. Very intentional. And two different teams, so this isn't any sort of team tactics. In fact, two teams that are very much rivals in this series.
It would be interesting to see if Wade can actually pull away, because even if he is on this lighter car and he's going to have to stop earlier, if he pulls the gap, it's not going to matter. And maybe that's the plan. Maybe he's just trying to get as much as he can in this stint now, and then he'll have to go long later on. But once you've built the gap, it's much easier to maintain the gap than it is to kind of run it down again.
And in his mind, he's not only racing Thunhorst, he's also racing Bennett and Warling, who we have been with for the first before the pit stop. So yeah, whatever he can do right now, we'll see how he plays out. This is fun. I like this.
So while Hayes has caught Thunhorst, we haven't been paying attention to Sylvanek, and we wondered if his pace was better than Matt, since they were both in free air. The answer is no. Ooh, look at that on screen. Thunhorst very much quicker than Paul. Does not bode well for the driver that was in contention for the win in the first stint of this race before he had a wreck with Eric Smith. It's extended to about 7 seconds between the 528 and the 98.
Actually, something that could really help out Wade Hayes here is it looks like Bennett and Warling are actually a little bit quicker than Slavonic right now. So if Slavonic falls back towards those guys and starts holding them up, it works out even better for Wade.
Smith got another one, by the way, the 32 now up to 15th as he just went past Lundy on the mountain straight. I love that this series not only tends to try... Whoa. Smith is pushing. Understandably so, since he's trying to make up time. How hard did he clip this here? I looked away for just a second, and I look back. I see sparks.
Just leave a little paint on that white part of the wall there.
We've got a Darlington stripe. Is there a Bathurst streak?
Wall contacts at Bathurst tend not to really go much further than that.
As we look at our new leader, Wade Hayes, ahead of Thunhorst.
Just to underline how hard Eric Smith is pushing, he is very quick right now. The last time by, he was the only driver in the 209s. Everybody else is in the 210s or 211s.
Temperature now up to 118 degrees Fahrenheit, another 4 degrees higher since we last looked around this track. He's absolutely gliding it through the downhill turns. We're sticking with him, though. You said the draft was pretty powerful. Is it enough that if you're close on pace, you can manage to keep up with a car that's usually marginally faster?
I definitely feel so. This is somewhat similar to what happened in the European race with myself and Tim Claessens. That it was very strange. The car behind always seemed like it was faster, so one of us would get ahead of the other, and then we'd be like, yeah, okay, we'll try to pull away a bit, but you can't, and all of a sudden you're like, well, the guy behind's faster again, and we'd swap, and we went back and forth for half the race like that. And so the draft, and something about being that second car, I don't know whether it's just that you can kind of roll around the track a little bit smoother. You've got a reference car right in front of you. As we see there, Wade in the turn one, just a little.
The 36 has had a big problem. I think this is in Quarry. Gets it pointed forward. He's going to bang his nose into the wall. You're going to see as he gets on the throttle on this steep uphill climb. Oof. Rear of the car just came around. Found himself a nice gap to get it going again.
You're kind of between gears at that point, and if you're just slightly too aggressive, it's like it's almost second, but it's almost third, and if you just lean on the power a little bit too much, you will get it snapping around.
Down in 14th position. I haven't watched Wayne Hutchison all that much, but we have watched Eric Smith. This is going to be another spot pretty soon as they approach the final corner.
Yeah, he should be able to get him here out of the first corner.
And I see Vincent Leherbier in the pits. I believe he's one of our cars off strategy due to his incident in the Dipper. Dog Bear car. Whoop. Well, he wasn't that strong off the corner, but neither was Eric Smith, spinning the tires once more. Mountain straight, just long enough that he can get to the inside. And Hutchison knows the deal. He doesn't defend. He gives him that line as a big tire streak comes off the left rear of Eric Smith, trying to blow it up into that uphill right-hander. He still gets that what is now 13th position and not 14th with Leherbier pitting.
Christian, it's 4 miles around this place. I don't know what that is in the metric system. You're over there across the pond with that 19, 20 kilometers. I have no idea what it is. But can Thunhorse, I'm making that up, by the way, can Thunhorse save enough fuel to get a lap, get an extra lap here?
It's 6.2 kilometers, and I'm not so sure. It depends. I think maybe if say he's close between the 23 and the 24 laps, maybe say he's a quarter lap short, then perhaps. But I found it quite difficult actually to save fuel in this car. And it seemed to be quite dependent on how aggressive you were on your down changes as to how good or bad your fuel usage was. So it kind of never really crossed my mind to do such a thing, just because of it's not inherently tight for a lap in terms of pit stops and so on. But maybe if he's gonna try and do something to tackle Hayes, because I don't know if he thinks Hayes is a threat, but I certainly would do right now. He's got great pace, and you don't know how much shorter his pit stop's going to be. He might still be there.
Lundy with an off track there coming through the chase. That's going to give Dick Mueller one more spot, and he's now up to 15th. It was Lundy we saw before as well. Go a little bit off through that turn earlier in the broadcast. We're actually getting close to the halfway point of this race, we should point out.
The driver to keep an eye on, and just in the back of your mind, Kevin Hill. Remember, he's back there in 8th right now. He's about 40 seconds behind the leaders, but he ran really, really long that first stint. He ran longer than anybody.
Yeah, that 52. Also in quite a bit of clear track right now. Toma is far ahead. Banfield isn't really a threat behind. In fact, Banfield's more concerned with Driscoll because they're duking it out for 9th position.
He ran long, had a real long stop. He might just go ahead and do that again, and then he might be the shortest when it comes to that final stop.
He could have a very, very short last stop.
Yeah.
Probably the idea he's going for. Bill, I was going to say earlier that one thing that I love about this series, not just mimicking the real races to their best ability, but in all that they've done in that, these races tend to actually feel like the real thing. The fuel strategy and things like that. Oh, Banfield just went off. Coming through Murray's corner, Driscoll's going to take that spot with ease. So Ross, in the 777, falls to 10th. He's going to outbrake himself as we ride on board, and it'll just slither into the tires.
Just to follow up on the point you were making, especially this particular race, which was incredibly clean for a sim race at Bathurst. I got to give a tip of the hat to all the drivers. And now we're into this. It's just like a real race. It's strategy. Everyone's just a mistake here or there.
Watching this pass between Toma and Callisto. Callisto's been struggling as of late. Something does not look great with that car. Toma is on the reverse course, now up to P6 with his overtake. Toma, having started in 13th, is looking very handy over the long haul.
Toma is actually one of the guys who went a little bit longer on his first stop as well. He's got 3 lap pressure tires than Callisto, and he's definitely making them work. His last lap was about 0.3 quicker.
And as we look at this, what I love about the tower we have on screen left there, if you're following a battle, if you have a personal battle like Bennett and Warling, which has been really close, you can see this by looking. We don't need to go there and see it. You can see that Bennett has opened it up on Warling now by a couple seconds. Back to that point, let's go ahead, Joe. You know where I'm going.
Yeah, Slavonic is only a 1.5 seconds ahead of Bennett. Slavonic, who had to take his spare car, we think took his spare car at least, doesn't look so hot anymore. Maybe it's because it is getting hot. Maybe his car better suited to the cooler conditions. It's up to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. And there's the difference. Every lap consistently for the past 5 laps that Bennett has closed in.
Well, that probably makes Travis Warling fans a little bit happy. It's not so much that Travis is falling off the pace as Brian Bennett's picking it up a bit.
Bennett's flying. Slavonic's already 8.7 off of Thunhorst, who could be riding in the slipstream of Wade Hayes. Just finding himself a little bit of extra pace and saving a tiny bit of fuel. to get to the end. This is our overall leader, just ahead of Thunhorst, taking it through the iconic Dipper, where the cars get slightly off the ground with one tire at times, and then braking. Patrick Fleming, in the meantime, has come in for what I believe is a scheduled stop.
Oh, let's go to Smith right now. It just happened. He just got around Schmeier on this lap on his climb. This is out of hell. The car got loose, took my breath away. I thought he was going onto the inside wall here.
They see him just ahead of Schmeier, and throttle control has been the weak point for Eric Smith. We've seen him spin them multiple times when he was battling for the lead. Now that he's down, hurrying to try and catch up to the leaders, it's denied him 11th spot. He falls to 12th with that mistake.
He'll get him back. He's really coming.
Pushing very, very hard.
We've already seen him brush the wall once. Love the angles that we can get around here. And I can only fathom what it must be like in the real world as we ride on the back of the dog bear car Schmeier, looking at Eric Smith, our pole sitter. I can only imagine just what it looks and feels like in person at the drastic elevation changes, and then watching these drivers try and sling these cars around here, because in the sim, it looks overwhelming. And the sim usually plays down a lot of features like this. Meanwhile, Eric Smith is going to play down Jeff Schmeier into 12th position. Smith now up to 11th. If he can get the car woed up, he gets wobbly, but he gets it under control.
Schmeier got to be hoping that Smith just drives away from him right now. Hey, let's go to third position. Slavonic has been caught. Bennett is right there.
Here, if a good launch down the Conrad Straight could offer the opportunity that the Northwest driver wants. He's been in this series since just about the beginning. In fact, it may be since the beginning that he's been racing, when it was just the Northwest Club that was competing before it got opened up to the entire world. And it's impressive that he's translated it. Wow, there must be some sort of straight line deficiency, unless Slavonic intentionally let that one go.
That looked like he let him go, to be honest. You do have a big run, but you're not normally alongside them at that point in the straight, and Slavonic really didn't fight it. I think he saw him coming and just made the decision to let him go.
You know, Bennett's been around so long, I think he raced himself right into the Legends division.
I mean, it's a possibility. We've been covering this for what, 5 years, something like that. So yeah. There's been time for drivers to enter it. Wade Hayes holding it that 3/4 of a second over Matthew Thunhorst. Ever since the overtake was made, the 98 has been playing a very cool race, just staying in the tire tracks of our leader. Pit window will open up on lap 40. As you can see, is coming up in 2 laps time, but it will then extend to a bigger window now to about lap 46. I guess 47 for the likes of Kevin Hill.
That's right, baby.
Here's some of that lap traffic that Wade Hayes was hoping not to hit. That's Kyle Murphy down in 24th. That's Fleming. He lost a position to Murphy in that process.
I like that technique. I've used that technique a few times.
Well,
I don't really like to let a position go by, though.
Yeah, I was going to say Murphy didn't like that tactic. So he stayed all the way in front of them until here. And it did gain him one.
Talked about Kyle Murphy. He's leader of the sportsman class, the only one of the top 5 drivers to make the the big boy split.
And perhaps that's why we didn't see him move over. Even though he is a lapped car, he's fighting to get as many positions as he can to extend his points lead. He knows this is an opportunity. We had a change for 12th position. This was between Mueller and Schmeier. Now, Schmeier just got overtaken by Smith not too long ago. Looks like another good run up the mountain straight here. Yes, indeed.
That may be the end of Eric Smith's climb for a while. He's got 34 seconds to get up to Ross Banfield.
Banfield, yeah. Oof.
It's a long way to go to the top 10 as well.
It is, yeah.
Not impossible. Pit strategy could also affect it, depending on how much traffic Eric Smith gets into versus Ross Banfield. Continue to watch Schmeier lead Hutchison down through Forest Elbow. After being overtaken by Mueller, he's already facing more drama on track. Number 17 closing in down the Conrad straight. I doubt he'll be aggressive enough to try and make a move into the chase, though.
It's a little too far back for that.
Slavonic beginning to lose touch with Brian Bennett, but he's not going to be alone for long because Travis Warling is coming.
Just glancing through to see who has changed the most positions around here. And it seems pretty even for a lot of drivers. I'm seeing a lot of 10 positions up for a great many. In fact, there you see right there. Of course, unfortunately, 10 down for Eric Smith. Beltrami and Stacy with a very good day. Wade Hayes is going to stay out one more time.
We talked about Beltrami. He's got a chance to pick one up here. A couple of fan favorites. Brian Barnes and his fluorescent blue machine being attacked by Bob Beltrami.
Salamis and popsicles. I'm not sure that's a good combination.
Baby. It works for me.
Maybe salami roll-ups and popsicles on a hot day. Sounds good. But Barnes running in that P16 position. Oh, did Schmeier just lose another one? That's just ahead of them. He lost two, I think. Lundy and Hutchison snuck by.
Got a lot of wall.
Ooh,
Had a hard time getting off the wall.
In fact, that's going to be very heavy damage on the right side of that supercar. I'm not even sure he's going to have good pace after that.
Well, that's one of the walls you really don't want to hit, and he sort of kind of climbed up it as well. So it was a really heavy contact. And I mean, it sounds strange to say it's one of the walls you don't want to hit, but it's one where if you do hit it, you tend to do a lot of damage. There's a couple you can kind of just get away with clipping, and you get a bit of a scrape, but it doesn't hurt you. But that one is a full-on side-on contact, and that is definitely going to have damaged this car a lot.
He is within the pit window as we take a look at Warling continuing to run down Slavonic. There you can see it has not been completely in favor of Warling. He did have one lap where he lost about a tenth, but otherwise it's heavily slanted for the number 90.
We saw Slavonic kind of surrender it to Bennett. Let's see if he does the same thing here to Warling.
Warling, I don't think he's close enough to get aggressive. He's going to gain on him. Slavonic's holding the middle of the road. This is very bizarre. He was caught relatively quickly down the straight. I wonder if he clipped the wall somewhere. Oh, and Hayes is in. Hayes takes his stop at exactly the end of lap 40. That frees up Thunhorst to retake the lead. Bennett continues on. Slavonic does as well, just ahead of Travis Warling.
So that's what we expected. The Hayes would have to pay the price. Now let's see how long his stop is. Last time it was about 33 seconds. I think it's going to be longer this time.
Yeah, he's still in there as we watch the battle on screen between Slavonic and Warling. Lionel Callisto, in the meantime, also an early stopper for the Alliance team. It's not just Kinetic going for some alternate strategies. Hayes is going 39 seconds. You were right, Bill. About 6 seconds longer this time.
Now, what we'll want to watch is see how that plays out in relationship to Bennett and Warling, because that's where he was before the first pit stop, right with those guys.
And I believe it will bring him out just ahead of them. If they have, say, a 33-second stop, then he had about 7 seconds on those guys, so he should come out just ahead of them.
Couple other takers. Smith in early. Mueller. Wayne Hutchison. Meanwhile, down the straight, Slavonic. Pulled a little toe from Kyle Murphy, the unorthodox teammate to Travis Warling. See him gain as we ride on board, looking over the rear wing. But he was able to get far enough away. Could be setup as well, the difference between these two. Is there enough that you can do that it could change the straight line speed of these cars?
Yeah, you definitely can. I messed around with it a little bit and found that, say, for a qualifying setup, it felt like there was some advantages to be had by messing with the rear springs and so on to get a little bit more straight line speed, especially down Conrad. So that can definitely be playing into it if those guys have kind of built that into their race setup as well.
It's interesting because Warling seems to be much better on the Conrad straight than he is on this main straight here as they head towards the hill.
Yeah, it does only... Well, okay. It sounds strange to say it, but it does only seem to really factor in a lot on Conrad. It's the mountain straight seems to be more about your exit out of turn 1.
Yeah, because Warling doesn't close nearly as much as he does on the back straight.
Yeah.
So if he's going to do it, it's going to be towards the end of the lap. We're waiting on Thunhorst to come in. We're on lap 42. So he's already gone 2 longer than Wade Hayes, who, by the way, returned in 9th place. And he has a lap car in front of him, so that doesn't bode well. A little bit of traffic there. Ross Banfield is the next one up.
Hayes has Nicky Coons in front of him. Coon will get out of the way. He's a veteran.
Yeah, but it matters on where he catches him, too, because some places along the mountain, you really have no place to try and move over. Warling continues to be stuck behind Slavonic. This, I would argue, is a case to come in early, at least a little early, and try and see if you could run around Paul if he truly thinks he's quicker.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those moments. He looks like he's got a good run this time, actually, though. He looks to the inside, but isn't able to get close enough. Oh, nearly loses it himself.
Adding the little extra rubber down to the track through the corner. That's not going to help his tires at the end of the stint.
Wow, look at this. Leader's in.
Thunhorst does pit. Hayes is just coming out of Forest Elbow. Of our leaders, only Thunhorst. Bennett stays out. Slavonic stays out. That's still a very close battle for what is now the lead, although it won't be overall.
Warling is gonna get Slavonic this time. Slavonic had a horrible exit. Here comes Warling.
Excuse me, for second, rather, this battle. He's got the inside this time. This is what he's been looking for. And Slavonic knows that outside line doesn't work in Griffin, so eventually gives up the ghost. Finally P2 for the number 90. Hayes coming through onto the front stretch. Thunhorse still stationary. Watching. Hayes is through just as Thunhorst gets going. Hayes is going to retake the lead. In fact, it was once again a longer stop for Thunhorst.
Now that's really confusing because he's gained no advantage by doing that. I could understand if, say, he'd ran really long, or say he just filled the tank and now he was going to take a short pit stop. But it's almost like he's filling the tank on every stop, and I don't see any advantage to do that. He's going the same run lengths now as Wade, but he's not actually getting any benefit from his longer pit stops.
And I'm pretty certain Alliance has somebody up on the booth right now. That might actually be Fleischle helping out.
So Brian Bennett's our leader now, for the time being.
How much longer does he want to go, though? He's going to try and lap Patrick Fleming. Wonder now that Warling has been freed, does he come in or does he stay out? He's going to stay out, but Slavonic is going to come in.
This will all cycle through, and eventually Kevin Hill will be the leader, as he's going to run long, I think.
And we'll see if he can get to that magic lap number 47, maybe even lap 48. If he can do another 24 lap stint. Coleman in and out. We've only had 2 DNFs thus far. That's Clement and Lasky. Otherwise, we've got 28 cars running on the track.
We're at Bathurst?
We are. I know, hard to believe. They have their spare car, so that may have helped a few drivers. Driscoll pits, Toma pits. Sweet.
Thunderhurst goes by Slavonic.
Slavonic having a very, very long stop here. I did notice he had some right side damage on his car. I'm wondering if that maybe played something into it. I expected him to come out closer than that.
45 seconds. Yeah, that's very much on the longer end. Maybe he brushed the wall when we weren't looking. That will return him in P7, but we're waiting on Bennett, Warling, Hill, and Banfield to take their stops ahead of him. On board with Hayes, still in the midst of things. That's Banfield, and that is for position. Even though Banfield has not pitted, he is under no obligation to pull over and let him by.
That's going to be our leader when everyone takes their stops.
We think.
We think.
He has actually opened a small gap to Thunhorst as well.
Now, did we miss something with Lehman? Well, we've got a good run down the Conrad. And Banfield going to be overtaken. Hayes now up to P4 with his second stop done.
Warling pits from second. The driver we want to see how that plays out is with Slavonic. As they were close together, Warling had just made that pass.
Slavonic's just now coming into the chase. We saw a long stop from Slavonic, so if Warling has anything less than, oh gosh, even 43 seconds, I'm pretty sure he's going to be okay. There goes Slavonic, Warling. Oh, it's a long one for Warling too, 43 seconds exactly. He gets it going, Where is
Pretty close.
Slavonic? He's coming up, and he's going to have a little bit better momentum, but I'm not sure he's close enough. Travis is going to stay ahead on the mountain straight.
I think we need to tech inspect Wade Hayes' car at the end. He must have a bigger fuel tank or something. He's filling the car faster than everybody else because this is very strange. I'm at a loss to explain as to why his pit stops are so much shorter, and yet he's able to do the same run lengths as I would expect. I just don't know whether there's something that I'm not seeing with the other guys, where it's still going to play out with the last stop, or whether he's just running a really good strategy and it's gaining him time on every pit stop.
Aren't you a kinetic driver, Christian?
I am, and I know he felt really confident about the setup he'd made, and he seemed like he was really enjoying it, and now I'm starting to see why.
You're going to be talking to him after the race, I assume.
Yeah.
I mean, is there a kinetic fuel hacks since there's a Finnish grip hacks, I guess? I don't know.
I don't know. I nearly underfueled my car by accident earlier. I made it across the line with a liter of fuel left, so Wade's obviously doing something better than I was.
Yeah, it certainly seems to have sussed this out as we're watching Thunhorst on Banfield. Wade Hayes just got by him not long ago. Is Banfield going to come in this time by? It's towards the end of the stint, but the answer is no. So Bennett Hill, Banfield, Lundy still going, and James Stacy looking for that second stop. Up the mountain straight. Thunhorst with a pretty decent launch, and even though he's got the slipstream, doesn't look to be gaining on Banfield right now. Thunhorst on much fresher tires too. I'm a little bit surprised that wasn't easier pickings.
It looked like Hayes had a little bit of trouble passing Banfield as well, so I'm not too surprised that Thunhorst is kind of finding the same.
And now he's going to be stuck all over the top of the mountain behind a car that is spinning its wheels a lot coming off the corners.
This is going to really hurt because Banfield's been doing 212s and Hayes and Thunhorst have been doing 210s, so this is almost going to lose him 2 seconds being stuck behind him here. As we see, he's actually going to try and force the pass.
Wow. Some great heads up from Banfield to see him stick his nose in and decide it's better to not try and continue this fight. So Thunhorst eventually getting through and into what is now fourth, but will be effectively second, we think. And Bennett is pitting.
Now, Bennett only went one lap shorter than Kevin Hill, who went longer than anybody. So the difference between Bennett and Hill is Bennett really has some good pace. Hill's only about 8.5 seconds ahead of Hayes right now, and Hayes has made an extra stop.
Bennett and Hill just makes me keep thinking we're talking about a TV show or something.
They solve crime, baby.
Yeah, there you go. As Yakety Sax plays in the background. Meanwhile, Kevin Hill has continued on. He's got, who is that behind him? That is Eric Smith, and that is on a different lap.
Smith's got way better tires. He's already made his second stop.
I believe Smith was on schedule too. Banfield's in, along with Bennett. Smith going to make that look easy as he goes by there. There is Banfield, the Apex driver, looking for his stall as Bennett just exits in front of him.
And he comes out in front of Warling and Slavonic. So that's basically how it was before the pit stop.
Behind Thunhorst, so Bennett should inherit third place. We're just waiting on Hill. Boy, what a penultimate round we've been getting here in the majors. And if you're just joining us, even though it's not official yet, it's getting closer and closer to being official, and it might as well now that Thunhorst will be your champion. Trevor Clement obviously not going to score points since he DNF'd early on, and Thunhorst only has to at least score points today now at this point, and he has got the championship.
Yeah, they're printing up the Thunhorst Championship T-shirts right now. It's a done deal.
There's James Stacy in. Here's the crazy thing about Thunhorst getting the championship potentially here, Bill. We've had Fleischle as a champion. We've had Callisto as a champion. And I'm trying to think if there's been any other Alliance drivers or if this will be number 3.
Yeah, they are dominant, for lack of another word.
Hill is in. The end of lap 47 as Wade Hayes, who is just behind him, comes across to start lap 48 and re-inherits the lead. It's been extended between himself and Thunhorst to about 3 seconds.
Again, I think Chris is honest. I quote my dad here on this, that eventually Rumpelstiltskin is going to come for the baby. I think that there's a price that Hayes has got to pay somewhere down the line here for these stops.
Well, there is one other thing that could have happened. I'm wondering if Hayes started the race with a full tank of fuel and the others didn't. And that could be playing into this.
Potential theory as well, and maybe my brain is, again, not mathing well, which we're known to do here on GSRC. Could it be that he's just strictly looking for track position here? Get himself into the right spot after the final stop, and then make it extremely difficult for anybody to pass?
It could be, and definitely we've seen it's hard to pass around here, so getting himself up into the lead is definitely the way to go in that regard. But looking at his his time in the box compared with Thunhorst, Hayes' was 38.9 seconds, and Thunhorst was 39.8, so that's pretty similar amount of fuel there between those two.
Les Mike Willett, he's given us some information about our champions in the past. It was Barnes the first year, then Williams, Fleischle, Callisto, Reynolds, and Thunhorst. Well, he's put Thunhorst on there, so I guess even he thinks that he's going to be champion. So that'll be Alliance driver number 3. More than any other team, for sure, so far. There we ride on board with Thunhorst, still running second place.
Brian Barnes, a former champion. That's good to know. I didn't know that.
I wasn't aware. It's been so long since we first started covering it. It's changed so much. I had forgotten that as well. I did remember Williams. Sad to see that he hasn't been here in a while. Like to see how he fares with these drivers. Thunhorst a little bit faster last time by, but only by about a 1/10. Eric Smith is in. Way too early. This is off strategy. Did he hit something when we weren't looking? I'm seeing he did, and it was... Where is it here? I think it was a full lap ago, potentially. Well, it seems to have been on the mountain, but I can't exactly figure out where.
It's like he had heavy left front damage.
Oh, yeah, it's out of the dipper. Out of the dipper that it happens. So going to be, I think, a little bit before this. Yeah. And you can see he's already got that damage and struggling to get it around. So Eric Smith's day is very much compromised. Yeah, this is where we should see it. Just out of the exit of the dipper. In fact, I think he has now left the server, so Smith has retired from the race. He's fine through here. Maybe just wheel spin on the way out.
Yeah,
Oh,
looks
there you go.
like he just kind of had a big swapper and just got the wall. And we did say he was pushing hard, and
Yeah. It was
That's
a, it
what
was a
happened.
matter of when, not if, that was going to happen.
Still disappointed to see the pole sitter not be able to finish the race, as Jason Lundy coming in for also an unscheduled stop with damage on the left side. What happened here? Heading over to Slavonic. Oh, whoa! What is going on
not
here?
the
Is that
racing line.
Whirling?
Yep.
It's Whirling handing over the spot to Paul Slavonic by going way wide through the chase. Mowing the lawn a little bit out here at Bathurst, and that is Nick Kuhn. That's not for position that he is alongside. How did Whirling get in that position? He was under slight pressure from Slavonic, but Slavonic was not attempting to pass. It was old plain driver error.
it looked like he kind of just maybe got drawn in by the cars ahead of him and just shot the corner. Easy to do, and thankfully he's able to keep going. No walls on the outside there.
Yeah, one of the few places you can manage to go way off course and not end your day.
And that's also what draws you into pushing there, is that you know that there's a bit of runoff
Safety
that
net.
you can use if it goes
Yeah.
wrong.
We're looking at Bob Beltrami, definitely in an area where there is no safety net. That's Jason Lundy. They're just on the tail end of the lead lap. Gall is the only driver behind them still on that lead lap. So 20 of our 30 starters are still running with the leader. Lundy looking great coming out of Forest Elbow, but he's not closing like I would expect on Beltrami. Down the Conrad straight. Bob well safe coming up into the chase. Maybe not as safe as I thought. Lundy's going to send it in anyways. The 653 is going to get it as he's given space from the 14.
Beltrami was our hard charger. He was up 9 spots, and he gave that one up, so now he's up 8. Also, Dick Mueller up 8, who races in 12th.
12, yeah.
I was actually going to mention about Dick Mueller because we saw him have that incident on the first lap, and he's made one more pit stop because of that than everybody else, and he's still running 12. So he's actually having a really good night.
Well, that's... I'm trying to think. So, could he be running this in reverse, maybe?
I don't know if he did actually stop in the pit lane. I know he's registered as having gone through the pits 3 times.
Let me check. I'll check real quick to see if I can figure out. No, he did not start from pit lane. He started on the grid. So that is a legitimate 3 stops he's made.
I know we saw him around after the skyline with some heavy front damage, and I'm assuming he definitely came and took his fast repair. I'm wondering if immediately after that he took the fast repair but didn't take service, so he's actually on the same strategy as everybody else, but with that one extra pass through effectively.
Could be. Keep an eye on that 083. Looking now at Matthew Thunhorst. He's cut down on Wade Hayes slightly, 2.3 seconds. It was up to 3 before. They've got lap traffic between them. Rob Gall has now gone a lap down. It's only 19 cars, and he's being caught on the mountain, so he's going to try and pull out of the way. There's that lap traffic we were talking about, Bill, and he did a good job of keeping out of Thunhorst's racing line.
2.4 seconds, the interval between Hayes and Thunhorst.
And Hayes has a huge group of cars ahead of him as well. That battle that we were just talking about with Beltrami, all those guys are now ahead of him, so he's going to have to pass 4 cars in quick succession, and I think that's going to really make or break his race here if he can maintain this gap as he cuts through these cars.
In fact, this is an interesting battle because I think Schmeier is falling back into the clutches of Barnes and Lundy. Beltrami trying to stay with him. Yeah, Hayes is going to get there right when these guys are all coming together.
Ooh, and Schmeier is struggling off the corner. out of hell corner. He was nearly sideways. So he is going incredibly slow up the mountain straight, and Barnes gets an even better look at him. You can see he's already defensive just to try and cover himself off, but it looks like he won't be caught this time at least. Boy, Schmeier looked more like he was a hoonigan there for a moment.
There goes Lundy past Barnes. Schmeier's in the wall.
Oh, that's going to be some damage. He's already slow, just feeling it out, making sure he doesn't drift across almost like he did there. And to Barnes, Bob Beltrami spying and sizing him up as we ride on board, looking up ahead at the number 30.
I think Hayes is going to get these guys right before his elbow. He may get all three of them down the Conrad Straight.
Might be. He's got a little ways to go. One of them is wounded. With Schmeier's damage, it might be his straight line speed is a little bit down. Certainly will want to get them on the Conrad Straight and not through the twisty bits.
A little far back, isn't he?
Yeah, I'm afraid that's not going to work out there. Maybe the mountain straight instead.
Dunhorse now got it to 2 seconds.
It looks like he's going to catch him on Mountain Straight, but definitely means he's not going to clear all of them before he goes up the mountain.
Barnes goes a little bit deep through that corner in his attempts to try and re-catch Lundy, and that backfires. Hayes now getting to the back of Beltrami. Once again, Barnes wide at Murray's as well. Seems to be struggling at this portion of the stint. So Schmeier, despite his damage, regaining on the number 4. And they hit the mountain straight this time by. Beltrami has got to be seeing the blue flags for Wade Hayes just behind him. They're only informational, though. He does not have to pull over until he feels he's ready, as long as he is not defending.
Come on, Bob's in a battle here for 16th position. Hang in there, Bob.
Another wide corner for Schmeier, and Bob is going to let him through. He knows he's going to get opportunities here potentially if Wade Hayes slows up those drivers in front.
It's quite critical for Hayes to get past him there, and it looks like it's going to free up how he gets across the top of the mountain. He's not going to get slowed up as much as he would have done had he been still behind Beltrami, so that was important there.
Really was. Puts a buffer between himself and Thunhorst. Up the skyline, there's no place to pull out of the way down through this portion. So Schmeier is slow, and it actually is blinking, which is really bad news because he's got to give him space now. Finally coming through Forest Elbow, he's going to get some clear track, but is he going to be able to get enough of a run? Yes, he will. Lets him out of the way.
Dunhorse gets Beltrami. And now we'll see if he can get to Schmeier. Too far back.
Just not meant to be this time. As this has been happening, Wayne Hutchison has Jess Coleman very close behind for 14th position. The number 17 having to do a little bit of mirror racing here. He's got a good 10 seconds up to the next car up, Patrick Fleming. This is looking like a decent launch from the 678 of Coleman as he sizes up that dog bear car. He thinks twice about it and does not stick his nose in through Griffin's Bend. Both of them just a little wide coming through that corner. And report that Hayes just managed to get by Barnes before Thunhorse got to Barnes himself.
Barnes lifted a little bit to help negotiate that pass.
Next up will be Lundy, but he is a ways ahead of Wade Hayes.
And then after Lundy, we get to the battle you were looking at Hutchison and Coleman. And I don't think those two are going to be breaking up.
Yep. We're past halfway in this race. In fact, we're very close to that mark that is needed for points to count for Thunhorst for us to be able to officially say he is the champion. Ooh, big bobble off the corner for Jess Coleman in that fight that we were watching earlier.
We need to see if GSRC can get us some fanfare music or something to play next season when the champion's crowned.
Talk to June, I guess.
Yeah. There you go.
Ooh, Hutchison defensive because it was a good run from Jess. And it looks like another decent exit out of the chase. They come down to Murray's corner. He stays with him right in the tire tracks. No defensive move this time from Hutchison, who just about lets him through. Give P14 now to Coleman. Or maybe not. Oh, I thought that maybe Hutchison was going to think about it with a crossover up towards Hell. A little bit of coverage from Jess Coleman says, no, stay there. With that, we're going to take a quick break. We'll take you all the way to the finish from here on the Global Sim Racing Channel for the penultimate round of the majors. The Bathurst 500 will be run to its completion when we return here on the GSRC. Welcome back to the Bathurst 500, the penultimate round here in the majors. That is your leader on screen, the kinetic car of Wade Hayes, on a very different strategy from what we've been seeing from those around him. You may have seen it on screen a little bit earlier. Beltrami, who had been working on passing Jeff Schmeier, did get that 18th position eventually. So a great pass by him during our break. But really the closest battle is this one up front. We were just talking about it before we came back, that most of the field is spread apart except for the lead, where Thunhorst has now chopped it down, Christian, to about a second.
Yeah, he's definitely been gaining on him, and really that's kind of making this last stop important. There was obviously a bit of a gap before, but now it really is going to come down to that last stop as to who comes out in the lead. And as we've seen, it's hard to pass. But also, when you kind of get within that draft range, it's really hard to get away. So, I think Wade's going to be under a lot of pressure now.
Just behind them, we caught flashes of battle for position. That's Leherbier and Lundy for P15. Leherbier, though, is on an extra stop, so he's got fresher tires.
I want to talk about Jason Lundy, though. He was back in this battle that we watched when the leaders were coming up to him. He was in a battle with Barnes and Beltrami, and also Schmeier was in that. He's left those guys behind. And not only that, he's ran up and caught Leherbier for that position. Lundy continues to be the leader of all the cars one lap down. And he kind of follows the leaders right up to him. And when the leaders lap somebody, Lundy kind of goes with them.
And Lundy started 15th, or excuse me, started 23rd rather. So this is fascinating that he's got this good a pace. A little bit farther behind, James Stacy and Adam Halleck fighting for P21. They're about 0.8 of a second apart as they cross the mountain here. I'd be curious to get your input, Christian, because one thing that, at least from my opinion, and I know it's subjective from driver to driver, is which is the hardest car on the surface. And for me, it is the Supercars. As I think we're getting a replay. Is this a pass here? Yeah, it looks like Leherbier is finally going to get Lundy down the Conrad straight. But yeah, to me, it's these Supercars. It's the most difficult to drive I've had of any car on the surface. But I am admittedly not the greatest of drivers compared to these guys. And with you have multiple wins, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I'd say it is kind of situational to an extent. Yeah, this is very hard. I would say that in terms of road car wise, or at least cars on road courses, I would say that the three that I found absolutely the hardest is the V8 Supercar, the 911 Cup car, and then the NASCAR Cup car. And they're all similar but different in their own kind of ways. But the main underlying point on them is that they're all effectively horrible. And that's the nicest way I could put it. None of them want to do anything you want to do. And the braking on all of them is extremely bad. All of them have really weird mid-corner behavior where sometimes they can just start bouncing and hopping and just strange things like that. And they're all difficult to get the power down in. So they're all kind of similar, and each kind of track brings out either the best or really the worst of them. So it's a little bit track and car dependent and combination dependent. But yeah, these are definitely up there. They're very, very difficult to drive.
So based on your compliments, I take it you have no aspirations of racing the Porsche E-Cup series in the near future.
I would if I could dedicate the time to it and figure out how to actually be fast in it, because I do enjoy the more difficult cars to drive, and to me there's nothing more boring than a car that's completely planted to the ground. So if I was fast enough in them, then yeah, I'd race them.
Clearly we need to get you into the Lotus 49 then at some point.
There you go.
As we watch Thunhorst now close it into within 0.6 of a second, as Patrick Fleming also pits from the mid-pack. The gap from our top two back to Bennett has extended to about 9 seconds. Brian has not been gaining on them. Thunhorst and Hayes have been the class of the field ever since the first stint, when we sadly lost Slavonic and Eric Smith. Actually, well, we didn't lose Slavonic. Where is he right now, actually?
24th.
Not a bad recovery for the 528. Sure, he would have liked a victory, though. Got some lap traffic in front of him. That's just Rob Gall that he's trying to get by. We're really getting into quite a bit of this lap traffic at this point. Many of the leaders having to deal with it lap after lap.
And this is where I feel the strategy comes into play for both of these battles, actually, with regard to lap cars, because they can get to the end from here. So do you pit early and get yourself out of lap traffic, or do you wait until you get to them and pit, or do you go with the idea that you're going to clear them? And it's difficult. It really is difficult to kind of figure out which way is going to be best, but realistically, I think whoever comes out ahead in both of these battles after each pit stop is going to be in a difficult position to beat. Really, like I say, we've seen how hard it is to pass, but they're getting really close in both the battle for first and fourth.
We'll have a new leader when we hit the chase here. Let's see.
Could be. He's very close to him, without about 0.2 of a second between. The 33 is being reeled in bit by bit down the Conrad. He weaves across the racing line, coming up to the chase. I don't think Thunhorse is going to try a risky move here, especially since he knows he's faster. And we've been corrected by the peanut gallery that Christian Challoner has raced in a 49 and lapped the fields in that race.
Yeah, but
That was on an oval.
It only turned
Yeah.
left. That's right.
No, I'd love to see you hop in on the official series one of these days, but might be a bit weird timing for you since I know you're sort of on American time over there in the UK.
Yeah, it's definitely something that would kind of have to be. I'd really have to commit to it, because I know that there's some serious car specialists for that, and I'd have no chance if I went to race that.
Talk to Mick Claridge. I'm sure he could help you out on getting you squared up. Meanwhile, on screen, up the mountain straight, still nothing for Thunhorst. We were thinking this was inevitable, but this pass is taking a little longer than we expected.
It's looking difficult for Thunhorst to make a run down Conrad, and it's just tricky coming through the chase, because that kink makes it difficult to get the braking right, and especially if you're going to brake deeper than normal to try and execute a pass. So the best opportunities are definitely the last corner and then the subsequent two before you get up the mountain. So you have to be really close at the end of the lap to really have a chance to have any chance of making a pass.
Still more than 20 laps to go. We have 13 cars on this lead lap. That's not many. That's well less than half at this point. We have lost a few more drivers since we last looked, and I'm actually not sure how we lost Scott Corbin. He has exited. He's our most recent retiree. We did cover Eric Smith leaving, Clement and Lasky were the other two if you're just joining us. Clement was our championship rival for this car in second, the black and yellow number 98 of Thunhorst, who is just a couple laps away from claiming his first Majors championship.
We only have 4 out after 60 laps. It's pretty impressive, though. These guys have done a great job at holding on to these cars tonight. There's Wade Pitts.
Wade coming in on that early strategy. The lead now handing over to Thunhorst. Wonder if this is actually facilitated a little bit by Thunhorst getting up behind him, not wanting to lose time with side-by-side racing.
It could be, and it's pretty much dead on schedule for what Wade's been doing for the rest of his race in terms of strategy-wise, and I think this is a smart decision to be the first one to pull the trigger, and he just come to the back of that lap car. He's going to have the fresh tires, and if he comes out in a clear space now, I think it's going to be difficult for Thunhorst to overhaul him in the pits. The pass is going to have to be out on track.
Yeah, you can see that's the dog bear car of Hutchison just in front of him. Thunhorst is catching him on the mountain as well. And just to complicate things, he's being caught by that is indeed Vincent Leherbier on fresher tires, way fresher tires.
That's a
Not
pass
for
for
position, though.
Well, it was Juan Hutchinson.
Oh, well, yeah, Hutchinson and Leherbier, that was a pass for position, but Leherbier is a lap down from Thunhorst. And on a different strategy to top it off.
And Hayes has come out in a good gap as well. He's got a lot of clear track ahead of him.
Oh, yeah, he did. 15 seconds up to the next car that's for position, and then Adam Halleck is the next car up that's quite a few seconds up himself.
So now, when will Thunhorst pit? How much longer will he go?
I mean, at this point, do you maybe try to match the strategy of him, Christian, if you're in Thunhorst cockpit, or do you just stick with what you're doing?
Well, I think at this point you know that you're going to come out behind him because you've stayed out that one extra lap. He's got the fresh tyres, and his pit stop wasn't particularly long, but he is going to go out for another lap. So I'm thinking at this point he's banking on having the fresher tyres and not being so far behind, and maybe just being in that draft range after he pits, and that will give him the edge. That's really the only play he's got right now because he's definitely going to come out behind.
I think Matthew Thunhorst has figured out the fastest way to get to the checkered flag, and he's just going to play his own strategy and not worry about Hayes.
He's been doing that now. He's still got 6-7 seconds over Bennett behind him. Worth pointing out that Bennett has been closing somewhat. He's got 4-lap fresher tires himself. Does the advantage start to wear away, or are they pretty consistently falling down in terms of pace over the course of a stint? Like is your best chance to make time in the first part?
Yeah, it's pretty much a consistent drop-off, to be honest, and it's actually really hard to judge because the track, with it continually getting harder, it maybe makes the drop-off seem a bit worse than it is, because your first lap of your next run is not going to be as fast as your previous one just because that track temperature changed. So it is a consistent drop-off, and definitely Wade's going to be faster, maybe 1 to 1.5 seconds a lap quicker.
Speaking of the temperature, without looking, Christian, you want to take a guess at what it is?
I said 130 near the start of the race, and I'm going to stick with that.
It's 130 right now. There you see on screen. So it's a little bit ahead of schedule for you, but you were right that it's going to get fairly hot on this track surface. With 20 more laps to go, and we're only at noon virtual standard time here at Bathurst.
It's still a full stint to go, effectively.
Yeah, absolutely.
Travis Warling made his stop. He was in 4th at the time he did it. Comes out in 7th.
We've been following Thunhorst here. Boy, Bennett is continuing to chop off time, actually very, very quickly. And now Thunhorst decides it's time to come in. He's safely through those chicanes. God, there's like 3 of them going in there.
Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking when they made that.
It's diabolical. Why is that like that?
They're Australians. They made a track that goes up and down a mountain on a street course. So, I mean, they must like a challenge.
It's true. There is nothing like this place. I actually think that this is the hardest track on iRacing, to be honest.
Interesting.
I think this is harder than the Nürburgring just because there's it's really weird with its rhythm. Like, you have the rhythm across the mountain, and then you've got a completely different track until you get back around to it again, and you have to kind of reset the whole time.
Wade Hayes off and around. He returned in 5th place. Thunhorst still stationary, but we do expect that Hayes on the fresh tires is going to be able to jump him. Going to be a slightly shorter stint, though, from Matt.
It's going to be close.
Oh, look at this.
Really close.
He's not going to have the momentum, and he's going to come out just behind. But you talked about 2-lap fresher tires now, but the game is on, and Thunhorst is going to have to do this on track.
Yeah, I'm impressed how close behind he came out to him as well, to be honest. I was expecting him to be further back than this, and this is really kind of giving the advantage to Thunhorst, I feel, because he's got those fresher tires, he's got the draft, he's going to have a long time to execute the pass, and Wade's going to have to do a really good job of defending this.
Yeah, he'll have 2 lap fresher tires for 19 laps. I guess that made sense. It's like you're never going to get old enough to be older than your older brother. I don't know. Let's move on.
There's going to be, if Kevin Hill continues his strategy, it's going to be lap 74, 73? No, it'll be 72. Yeah, 72. I can math. I did it. I got it right. The 52 going to pit on lap 72, I believe.
They have a 9-lap run on those fresh tires. How much can he make up in those 9 laps?
And it's going to be a very quick stop. Actually, is he going to be fuel limited or tire limited on the pit stop then, since that's so short?
I still think he's going to be fuel limited. The pit stop for tires is really quite fast on these.
Yeah, it's going to be a quick in and out. And he's sitting in 6th place, but he still needs to take that final stop. He's only on lap 15 of his stint.
Dunhorst is going for it here. He's just really trying to close up the Wade under braking for the chase.
They are just ahead of Hill. This is for P4 now, but the lead in the end is Toma is going to hand it over, so it's now going to be bumped up to P3 that these two are fighting back and forth. So Bennett up ahead will be looking for 3rd place when he returns. What a good quiet run to a podium for number 71. In fact, his gap back to Slavonic up to 15 seconds between them.
"47 seconds to back to Hayes for Bennett." Seems like a long time, but I guess that's not enough to get in and out.
We'll need to watch for the end of this lap because we're on lap 64. It's at the completion of this, because of our DNFs today, that Thunhorst cannot finish as low as he needs for Trevor to have any hope. He's going to claim the championship as soon as he crosses the line here. No matter what happens, he is your 2019 Majors Drivers Champion. Officially endorsed by Mario Andretti, a driver who's won multiple different championships in different types of racing. Just about as varied as you can get. Staying within half a second of Hayes. Still hasn't been able to overtake him, but continuing to stay a threat behind. They're on their final stint, and Thunhorst do this one in style and claim a championship and a victory in the same race. A little too far back this time, coming down to the chase, so he will stay behind. From off the corner, the number 98 has been working on this all season long, and with a race to spare, Matthew Thunhorst is now your new champion here this year, this season in the majors.
Officially endorsed by Mario Andretti. That's really cool.
Yeah. Now if we can just get him on for an interview during one of the broadcasts, see if we can work that out. One of our commentators has actually gotten to talk to him before. Well, no, actually, I take that back. It wasn't Sam talking to him. It was his co-worker at Fox Sports back when he was a journalist there. Got to have dinner with Mario Andretti, and he asked, would you like me to ask him any questions? And I think Sam asked him about the Lotus 79. So close. It's a Kevin Bacon level close, I guess you could say. Does anybody still play that game? being told it is a website, which doesn't surprise me at all. There's my dated reference for the day, though, Bill.
Attaboy. Don't worry, they only get worse as you get older.
Hey, I was already made fun of by my younger co-commentator during the Detroit race in Lotus 79, because I went to that race in the 90s, and he called me old for that.
We continue to look at this battle.
Yeah. Thunderhorse still in second, hasn't been able to overtake him. I almost wonder if he doesn't really want to press the issue here.
He's looked like he's trying, but Wade looks like he's really mirror driving right now. I've been watching really closely this fight, and every time Thunderhorse positions his car slightly offset, Wade goes to cover it. So I think Wade is now so focused on Thunderhorse that it's actually slowing him down.
How fitting is this, too? You can see that logo on the back wing. Kinetic versus Alliance for the victory here. Even though they weren't the ones that wound up trying to sort out the battle in the Teams Championship this season, they have been at each other's virtual throats for many races, seeking the victories. Speaking of that Teams Championship, I'm not sure if we can officially call it yet, but I'm pretty sure we can. That Alliance as well should have at this point been able to claim the Teams Championship over Unorthodox. So we've got Thunhorst. Kevin Hill is Unorthodox, so he's pretty far up. Unorthodox for Travis Warlane, but really, even if they're far up, as long as it's 200 points for that Alliance team, doesn't matter where those Unorthodox drivers finish. There's Kalisto running in 9th behind Toma, who is another one in 8th for Alliance.
So 46 seconds is the interval from Bennett back to Hayes. When he comes in, he's not going to come in for a while. I guess there's no way for him to get in and out and just a splash of fuel and get... I'm going to say, don't go away, folks.
I think he might be closer than we maybe expect.
All right.
Ooh, Thunhorse nearly had a big moment there. Both of them kind of clipped the grass at that little kink on Conrad, and like Thunhorse got a bit unsettled by it.
Flying down at about 170, 180 miles an hour before they get on the brakes through the kink into the chase. Ooh, Thunhorse looking very good on the binders, actually. Closes it into nearly less than a car length between them.
Yeah, Christian mentioned that before. Thunhorse really good under braking going into the chase.
All right, Slavonic is taking his stop. This is going to be a relatively short stint for him as well.
This would be a good indication. He was 17 seconds behind Bennett. So we'll do a little math, a little algebra, and see how that's going to play out.
Hill goes by, Warling goes by.
Now that's a pass. That's a pass for a position there. Hill needs to make his stop. Warling does not. Warling's good to go.
And Slavonic's back out, but Hill, again, it's going to be a short stop, but he's not that far ahead of Slavonic. Slavonic should jump him pretty easily. Warling and Slavonic separated by about 8 seconds on the track between 5th and 6th, both of them done with that third stop.
I'm being told that the expectation is that Bennett is in this fight.
I think so. Okay.
They expect he'll come out behind this pair, but that he'll obviously have the freshest tires of the group. And with these two fighting, he'll be close.
Slavonic is a minute 6 behind Bennett right now. If I do the math, figure that Bennett's going to be about 17 seconds faster than that. Boy, it's going to be close, I think.
For reference, Thunhorst was 58 seconds cone to cone on a 35-second stop. So if I'm seeing 51 for Warling on on his stop.
There you go.
Warling stopped a little bit later, of course. There you see him chasing Kevin Hill for the moment. Much fresher tires than Kevin, who's trying to stretch it as long as anybody to really get himself a nice run at the end.
I'm Brian Bennett. It's the penultimate race of the season. Just go in there, get enough fuel to get out in front of the leaders. Make them pass you on the track, even if you run out of fuel. Scare them a bit.
And let's not forget that Bennett is fighting for that championship in the Legends division. He's well ahead of Barnes today. This could clinch it for him, I believe. If he outscores him by enough. We got a replay. What happened here? This is a pass for position between two unorthodox drivers. Warling overtaking Hill. Banfield's in. Another thing that amazes me, Christian, is we really get a sense on a lot of these shots. It seems like these cars' suspension have a lot of travel. You usually don't see race cars lean into corners quite this much.
Leader is in.
There's a ton of movement with these cars, and you do have a couple of options to kind of restrict that a little bit with the bump stops and whatnot. It looks like it's going to be a close here between Thunhorst and Hayes. He's being very defensive down Conrad.
This is the first time we've really seen a move from Thunhorst. As he gets alongside him, he's going to be on the inside of the kink, but the outside. Oh, and off track goes Hayes. He tries to collect the car, but that thing is gone, and off course it goes. Could that be the race gone from him? Thunhorst continues on, but we wonder about Bennett at all. It just explodes here. And
roll,
this
Brian,
stop.
roll. He's rolling.
Thunhorst is coming up the front stretch.
Bennett's going to have the lead.
Wow.
Roll, Brian, roll. Nice job, Brian Bennett out in front.
Incredible. 6 lap fresher tires. Let's look at the replay on Hayes. And he tried to keep it side by side through the kink there. I wondered about that move, but I figured he would have been able to try and keep it on track. But as soon as those tires went off, Christian, I thought that was good night.
Yeah, I think what happened there was that obviously he knew that Thunhorst was on the outside, and to be honest, the outside there is kind of the preferred place to be when you can break into that corner. And it looked like Wade just tried to carry full throttle through there, and you can't do that. You have to lift just a little bit, and obviously once the left sides were on the grass, it just got away from him, and I feel really bad for him. I know he's going to really be beating himself up about that, but he's done such a great job, and this has really been, to me, a breakout race for him. I've not seen this pace from him before, and it's been really impressive to see him as fast as he has been.
Bill, what's that phrase as we look at our leader, who is not only leading the Legends division, but the race now? Old age and treachery over youth and enthusiasm?
That's right, baby. I'm a little worried he's too old to win this thing.
Well, he's out-strategized those around him, but it's 2.5 seconds ahead of Thunhorst. He's still got to outpace him to the end. If Thunhorst, even though he's on older tires, if he's quicker, then he could still catch him and try and pass him, even if he's got a little less grip underneath him.
Bennett stopped 25 seconds in the box. Thunhorst was 35.
Heading up to lap 70 now. Wow. Bennett pulling the wool even over our eyes in this race. We were so focused on Thunhorst and Hayes after the first stint that we didn't pay attention to the 71. Trying to deny his own teammate victory on his special day here. Oh, and here comes Le Herbier, who I believe is a lap down. I think he should be able to pull aside and let Thunhorse through. Oh, and Kevin Hill is in.
Final one. He was in 5th. He had fallen a lap down, so his strategy to run along just didn't have the pace, but he's going to be okay. Come out about 8th, I think.
8th right now belongs to Lionel Callisto, who is through the chase. Should be the shortest stop of anyone. 25 seconds for Bennett, so we're looking at what, about 22 seconds potentially for Hill. Toma coming down the front stretch, Callisto following him in. Hill is out. Toma is by. And he is ahead of Callisto. It's 7th place for Kevin Hill.
We got
Very
ourselves,
short stop there.
yeah, a nice little battle there between Toma and Hill and Callisto. These final 12 laps.
To answer our question before about whether or not Thunhorst can catch Bennett, I'm not sure if he was held up by Le Herbier when we looked away, but he is already 4 seconds back when it was 2.5 when he exited the pits.
Yeah, I've been keeping an eye on it, and Thunhorse is actually letting Le Herbier go, but Le Herbier wasn't holding him up. He was never ahead of Thunhorse.
Short fuel? Doesn't think he's got enough to get to the end, potentially?
And new tires against 8-lap old tires, perhaps.
That's true.
I mean, Bennett is gone. Like, he's taken off.
Now does he have enough fuel?
Well, Bennett sure seems to think he does, but Thunhorst is going a little bit slow here.
Yeah, he doesn't really look like he's full throttle down the straights.
Well, even though it doesn't matter where he finishes, it'll be a bit of an embarrassing way to run out of fuel on the championship race. 98 may have to duck in for a little splash and dash. At least if he wants to do some donuts at the end. Tell you what, Kevin Hill with his fresh tires as well. The 908 of Ryan Toma just ahead of him by less than a second. We could have a battle for 6th. And that's as high as Kevin Hill will probably go because Paul Slavonic is nearly 40 seconds ahead of them. But boy, the top 5 just destroyed the rest of the field.
Hill has
Kind
not.
of two packs, haven't we? Really, that kind of group of 5 at the front who's got away, and then 6th, 7th, and 8th have all been really close.
All things being equal, Hill may not have the pace for Toma, but Hill's got 24 less miles on those tires.
Heavy cars, they put a lot of weight and a lot of pressure, especially in some of these quicker corners on that rubber. Can't discount how much the grip starts to go away as time goes on. But we are getting ready to be 10 laps to go now in this penultimate round because Brian Bennett's coming across the start-finish line. And despite me trying to add some drama before, Matthew Thunhorst is continuing to drop off of Brian Bennett.
You know, it's such a long race, you forget the storyline, but remember, we had a Smith and Slavonic were leading, and they got together, and that allowed Hayes to sneak up in there, and then Thunhorst has been chasing, and then Bennett with this tricky move. This has been a really fun race.
This is far more changes for the lead than I expected at this race, if I'm honest.
And a lot of cars in the fight throughout the night, and I've got to be honest and say I didn't expect we'd be talking about Brian Bennett as the guy in the lead at this point, but he's obviously worked a really quiet race, done what he needed to do, and it's gonna work out for him in the best way.
And here's a feel-good story for you as well, Bill. This will be his first win of the season if he manages to keep this position.
Cherry actors around the country cheering them on.
Meanwhile, Kevin Hill and Ryan Toma still fighting for this 6th spot back there. This is looking like a good opportunity for Hill, coming off of Hell Corner, but he got a little bit of wheel spin. He's going to get the slipstream. I think Toma is going to be safe, though, by the time they come over the hump and get on the binders. What kind of mental exhaustion are you feeling inside the cockpit as well at this point in the race, Christian? Because you talked about you considering this one of the tougher, if the toughest track on the service. Our audience who don't sim race might not understand just how much your brain is fried at these long races.
Yeah, it's funny actually, because one of my teammates who ran the international race yesterday was saying about how he thought it was the hardest race that he'd ever done on iRacing, and I kind of brushed it off like, oh, it can't really be that bad. And then today I was the last quarter of the race was extremely difficult, because it's if you even break concentration for a moment on any part of the mountain, you're gonna crash. Like there's no kind of debate about it. It's going to happen. So you have to be focused the entire time. Not to mention the fact that you have to be on top of the car as well. And it gets hotter as the race goes on. And it just, everything goes against making it easy for you.
Might be Toma who was not on top of the car across the mountain, because we saw a big slide from him there. And here's a great opportunity with the shot tires, but Hill's still not taking it as he lifts before they get to the chase. Deep into the corner, though. Toma with a bad exit. Another chance. Hill looks to the inside, thinking maybe he could outbrake him with the fresh rubber underneath him, but it's not to be on this corner. He's really looking on the inside more and more. He's getting more aggressive and thinking about trying to overtake this. He knows he has a little bit of time here, and he's got the car.
He's got no threat from behind either, really, so he can definitely go for it.
Defensive move from Toma, staying to the inside. We haven't really seen this outside move work into Griffin's Bend. Hill may be looking for the over-under. Nope, he misses the line. Goes a little bit into the gray stuff, and he's going to have to square up for later. Let's take a glance a little bit farther down. They may be a lap down, but it's still a battle for position. Bill, you've been watching Lundy and Hutchison.
They were a little tighter before. Lundy got around Hutchison and now is starting to pull away. Lundy having a good run, up 9 spots.
Lundy's another one that's raced on GSRC for quite a few years now. That Puffin team's become a familiar name. Love how fast these cars can get down this long straight. I can't fathom what it must have been like before this was put on the track, the chase to split up the run down into Murray's, where God, they were 180 miles an hour and braking into a 90-degree right-hand with no runoff on the outside.
Sounds awesome when you think about it like that, really.
You can try that. I don't know if I would be quite so brave.
Not in the cars of that day either.
No.
How much those things moved around.
Still, as Toma holds off Hill. Ooh, this is a lot closer this time, though. Toma is going to cover off the inside. They've got lap traffic in front. That is Gall. That could maybe cause a complication in this battle.
He's going to get him right here.
Corner. Hill with the over-under. And that gives him the inside he's been looking for. He's not quite got an overlap down at the apex. And look at that. Toma still denying him.
I wonder if Hill...
Sure that he had it there.
Yeah, I wonder if Hill thought that he couldn't get it done, and then he'd be on the outside again down mountain, and he just decided against it.
move, and now they're going to get held up quite a bit because they've caught the back of Gall. Nice heads up by Rob. The 31 lets them both through. Close to now 7 to go. So I said that he's got time, but boy, Hill has certainly let a few opportunities pass by, waved them off. He's got to start doing something soon.
Does the advantage of fresh tires start to minimize as everyone's tires get older?
Yeah, the longer you run, the more that advantage kind of ebbs away. So that's kind of why it's crucial to negate that tire advantage as much as you can, and that's why you have to be really defensive when you're going up against guys on new tires, because you know that they're going to fade away. So the longer you can keep them behind you, the better your chance. Well, the better your chance of defending that position. But Hill has had some chances, but it looks like in the key areas where so for example, down mountain, he needs to be on the outside of turn 1 to have the line that he wants in the 2, and he can't get there. And Toma's good at defending that, and he's good on the brakes as well, and that's making it really difficult for Hill to get anything done.
Yeah, but he's really strong here. Repeatedly, he's looked like he could potentially get something done. This time, he doesn't go for the move down into Murray's. The reason I was making a noise earlier is we saw both of them lock up down through Forest Elbow, so clearly they're both pushing. He's in lockstep right behind that number 908. You can tell that he's trying to get the power down. And we've been starting to see in certain spots around this track, the marbles really building up offline.
Don't leave the inside open. That's not enough time.
Yeah, I don't think it was quite close enough. As this has been happening, Slavonic, another driver on a late stop strategy, is closing in on Warling. Paul looking to salvage a 4th place.
Now, just ahead of the battle we're looking at there between Toma and Hill, Fleming just got passed by Beltrami for what would be 17th. This is going to be interesting.
And unfortunately for Fleming, he had to back out of it, so he lost a lot of time trying to let Hill through. Don't think they're going to get to Beltrami until the Conrad Straight. So, well, and unless Beltrami has a big problem coming down through the S's, and that costs him a lot of time, managed to keep from losing his number 14. Really outbraked himself through there.
It's one of those moments that makes you wake up for sure as he gets out of the way coming down Conrad.
Let's stay with this battle that we've been watching between Hill and Toma. But just an update, Thunhorst has fallen back to 10 seconds now behind Bennett. We might have to have eyes in the back of our head, or we got to get this done now. Oh, and once again, Toma parking his car exactly where Hill wants to put his. He couldn't take advantage of the slow exit off the corner, stays defensive down through Murray's. We've seen this before, and last time Hill didn't try and make the move. I hope he tries to go through with it this time. He doesn't have the overlap, and he doesn't. He backs out of it. What is he waiting for?
I just think he thinks that he can't get it done on the inside, and that's why he keeps trying to cross him. It looks like Hill's strongest on exits and Toma's strongest on braking, and every time Hill kind of goes for the move, if it doesn't come off, he never contends it on the brakes into the next corner.
We've jumped up to Slavonic because we were warning about him closing in on the unorthodox car of Travis Warling. He's there. It's half a second between them with what will be 5 laps to go in just a moment.
And Slavonic's been a lot faster. His last lap was over a second faster than Warling's.
I'm watching both this and the Toma Hill fight. as they come down to the chase. Whirling on 14-lap old tires. He was one of the earlier pitters in this sequence. It's going to be a very tough ask to hold back the driver who started on the front row, mind you. Slavonic, remember, had an accident, just happened to be able to come in and get his spare car at the right time when he was scheduled for a stop. Hopefully the red mist has gone away by now for Paul. Mountain straight, not giving him the slipstream he wanted. That 5.28 falling back to about 3 car lengths behind Warling. Now that they are on the mountain portion, going to be a lot harder for him to get by now that he is regained, but his tires will also be a little bit more effective through here.
And it looked like he might have had an opportunity down Mountain Straight, but he just didn't get a great exit out of turn 1, and we saw he didn't gain at all down the straightaway because of it. And across the top of the mountain, he's almost certainly going to be faster. He's making up that time somewhere, but again, it comes down to, can you do anything with it? And the answer really is no, you can't. So his next opportunity really is into the chase.
Is he going to take it, though? How much is he willing to risk? Ooh, speaking of risk, I just saw Kevin Hill actually look to the inside of Griffin's Bend.
Yeah, but
Toma covered him off.
Yeah, he was being very careful.
Let's see how close he is now. Oh, but he goes wide, and Toma manages to hold him off. Christian mentioned earlier, it's hard to try and get by if someone ahead makes a mistake through this portion. Saved by the bell, Ryan Toma retains 6th position for now.
Slavonic's looking for the pass on Warling. Looks to the inside of the chase, he's there.
He's got the inside, but he doesn't have the momentum off the turn. Great stuff by the number 90 to be able to use the high side of the corner to be able to pull off ahead of Paul Slavonic. But Paul's now gotten a taste of big lockup there coming through Murray's corner. He finds that he can cross over. He's clear and covers off the inside. Slavonic still so much better on the brakes, able to get side by side. They're going to bang wheels a little bit, and that sends Slavonic off into the AstroTurf. He can't get on the throttle as quickly, so settles for 5th.
Yeah, it was smart by Slavonic, though, to go to the outside, and I think Warling knew exactly what he was trying to do to get the inside down mountain, and there was a little bit of contact. I don't think it was intentional. It just looked kind of like how it worked out on exit, but if Slavonic had been able to stay there, he would for sure have taken that position.
Did something happen to Herbie? Oh, yeah. He is stuck in a bad spot. He's going to try and get it going. There we go. This looks like Quarry. Yep. Let's see as he comes out of the cutting. Guessing wheel spin. Yes, indeed. Very similar to what we saw earlier. I'm trying to remember which driver it was, but almost a carbon copy.
He'll look into the outside now down mountain.
Let's see. He's going to fall away on Griffin's Bend. He's going to keep trying because at least that's what's been offered. Toma's just going to keep defending.
It's funny, you have one unorthodox driver, Warling, playing defense, and then you have the other orthodox driver, Kevin Hill, trying to play offense, get around Toma.
Both for positions within the top 10 in the final laps of the race. Because we are now down to 3 laps to go.
Well, if Brian Bennett had any fuel issues, he's sure not showing it, because he just keeps opening up more of a gap.
And another close moment for Slavonic through the chase. He tried the other side this time. That didn't work either.
He's been very aggressive with his moves, but I actually think it's costing him because every time he's having a move like that, he's dropping so far back. I feel like if he just kind of work him over a little bit more and kind of just make the pass slowly through the couple of turns he is better, it would go better for him.
Yeah, he's fallen off big time. This is LeHerbier. We saw him get that damage. He's going to try and get some of that repaired. He must think that the car's not handling well after that contact. Maybe he's just coming in for fresh tires, it looked like.
Hill's got a really good opportunity.
And he's going to move him. Gets into his rear bumper. He gets a little shaky, but Toma doesn't lose the car, and he's going to stay to the inside. Starting to get a little bit handsy out there. And behind them, that is not for position. That is Jeff Schmeier, so he's just kind of watching and waiting. Ooh, Hill backs out early. Is he looking to set up the run here, maybe? If he did not make it work.
To me, it just looks like Toma's so much better on the brakes into turn one, and I was just watching both of them there, and even though Hill's behind, he's actually braking earlier.
We've jumped back up to Warling and Slavonic. Maybe lap traffic is what the doctor called for.
It's Ray Partridge.
Yeah, just in front of him, Bill.
And actually, I think it's not going to work out well as Warling's going to get a tow from Partridge.
The Warling certainly had a lot of wheel spin coming off of Forest Elbow. Partridge is going to stay off to the side, seeing this battle happening. Not missing anything with the podium, by the way. It's still separating between Bennett and Thunhorst, and Hayes isn't able to challenge. This time, Slavonic not going for a move, staying right behind him. Ooh, and maybe he could set himself up for Murray's. I think Warling knows it. He drifts over to the middle of the track. Boy, Slavonic is looking desperate. In fact, he's been sliding around so much, I almost wonder if he's burned those tires off and he's lost much of his advantage.
Definitely looks like he's not being kind to his rear tires on corner exit.
And 2 laps to go. Up the hill as he follows in the slipstream. He runs out of straightaway into Griffin's Bend. Not going to have an opportunity into the cutting. Let's head back to Hill and Toma. Ooh, actually, because there's a bit of wheel spin there from Toma off of Murray's corner. And Hill, almost looks like Hill checks up when he sees that happen. This time he's going to brake later. And this time he's got the outside, but he can't keep the overlap.
That's what he needs to do, though. That's way, way more like what he needs to do to get this pass to work. He just needed to be a little bit better on the brakes.
It's been an intense fight, not just here for 6th position, but for 4th as well. He closed in again on the brakes, so maybe he's figured out how deep he needs to go. Maybe he was easing up and being kind to the tires on the previous few laps just to get them to cool down. As we jump over to our leader, and Brian Bennett going to take the white flag. Just the 81st lap here to go.
4 miles. 14 seconds on Thunhorst.
Meanwhile, we jump back to the battle here between Warling and Slavonic. Slavonic's got the launch, and he's got his nose under the rear wing, but through the second part of the chase, Warling starts to pull away. Not going to be a chance down into the final corner as they now see the white flag. Just a few more chances for Slavonic to try and make this happen. We're down to 10 cars left on the lead lap, by the way.
Slavonic's best chance might be actually on the exit here. If he can do the over-under and kind of fake him out.
Yeah, he's staying way defensive. Now he's coming back to the line. Oh,
that's way too far
there's
back, surely.
Oh, but he's managed to get it woed up. He drafts out, he wafts out a little bit, but he makes it stick. Although I think we're going to see Warling try and come back at him as he crosses over, coming up to the cutting. He doesn't have an answer for him. Oh, but that's a big slide from Slavonic off the corner. Manages to cover him off. Still more wheel spin from Warling as well. Their tires are gone.
I think Warling's going to pay him back for that one down Conrad. I think he's going to be sending him a package as well when it gets to the chase.
Oh, it'll be intense. I'm keeping an eye on our leader. Don't worry as we stay on board with Travis Warling. We haven't had a change between Hill and Toma either. That stays where it is. But into the chase now as Brian Bennett has just one more corner to go. You can teach an old dog new tricks, it turns out. The 71 comes to Murray's corner and around it to take victory here at Bathurst. Thunhorst also going to solidify his championship with a podium here today. I'm sure he'll still be celebrating.
Warling
And Slavonic, what happened to Warling? He must have had damage somewhere there.
out of fuel.
Oh, well, where's Toma? Toma's a long way back, but he could still catch him here.
Yeah, they're just getting to Forest Elbow now.
Wow. After all that, Warling just shy, and I doubt he'll be able to coast enough. He's very slow. He's only at 48 miles an hour right now. Toma well clear of Hill. Again, unless we see Hill go ultra aggressive, I don't think he'll have an opportunity.
Well, Hill wanted sixth position, but he's going to get it a different way.
There's Warling, and it's uphill here, so it's even harder for him to try and make it to the finish. They streak on by. Toma is being hounded by Hill. He's looking to the inside in the final corner, and he's just not close enough. Hill knows it. He comes back to the racing line, and Toma will get a top five. After all that struggle for Travis Warling and that robust defense, is Kalisto going to be getting by? So Kalisto demotes him to 8th.
I think Driscoll's going to get him as well.
I can't believe Warling actually made it to the line.
He hasn't yet. He's very close.
That's Gall. That's not for position. That's a car getting a lap back. I think he was ahead of Driscoll.
Driscoll.
Yep, he finished ahead of Driscoll. So P8. Let's take a look at the pass between Slavonic and Warling, which I guess in the end really didn't mean a whole lot. Wow, that was from a long way back. You know what, though? Maybe this is a case of Warling knowing he didn't have enough fuel and he was trying to save it to the end here.
I mean, it was from so far back though, but Warling must have thought he was okay because he went to defend it.
Well,
He raced it the whole way.
He did, but I suspect that trying to save fuel, knowing that he's short, he braked early. And maybe that's why it seemed like he came from so far back.
That's
Slavonic,
possible because he
yeah.
did get it pulled up.
Well, that was a fantastic finish. You can see the Alliance drivers celebrating a win and a championship. Hopefully we'll get to talk to both of them when we come back from our break. We'll have the unofficial results as well as driver interviews on screen. You'll see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC. Welcome back to Bathurst. The Bathurst 500 just finished here for the penultimate round of the majors. And the championship, the Drivers' Championship, may be over, but the season is certainly not. The race today is done, and Brian Bennett gets his first victory of the season. Matthew Thunhorst, who claimed his first championship himself, finished second just behind his teammate Wade Hayes. A mistake may have cost him that very second place. He was third, just behind Thunhorst at the line. And Paul Slavonic had to fight for fourth and maybe not fight as hard as he thought because the driver he was fighting with ran out of fuel. Brian Toma, fifth place for him from 13th on the grid. Great pace during this race as Kevin Hill fought him as well all the way to the line. Sixth for him. Lionel Callisto up to seventh, just taking it right at the line. Travis Warling was the one who was battling with Slavonic, and he was out of fuel. I'm amazed that he coasted to the finish out of all that. Warling finishing eighth place. Steve Driscoll with a ninth, and then Ross Banfield Bill rounds out our top 10.
The next 9 drivers, all 1 lap down, starting with the driver in 11th, Dick Mueller. Jason Lundy's our hard charger from 23rd to 12th. Congratulations on that. Wayne Hutchinson and Brian Barnes go 13th and 14th. Jeff Schmeier perseveres in the 15th position. All ribbons and curls in the Sweet 16 spot is Bob Salami Beltrami. Rob Gall after him. 18th, 19th, and 20th is Nick Kuhn, Adam Hollick, and then 2 laps down is Dale Green. Christian?
Then next on the 2 laps down, we had Kyle Murphy and James Stacey. Then we have Vincent Lahibia. We saw he had a couple of issues, and he came home 23rd. Then we had Patrick Fleming, 24th with 6 laps down, one of the guys with the first major issues. Same as Ray Partridge. We didn't really talk much about him all night, but he comes home 6 laps down. And then we move on to the guys who really did have big issues during the night. Jess Coleman in 26th, Scott Coburn 27th. Eric Smith, we saw him battling for the lead, started from the pole, but just went wrong for him so badly. And the same could be said for Trevor Clement. He came in with a chance to win the championship, or at least keep the fight alive until the next round, and unfortunately, he went home early and finishes 29th. Then we had Kane Lasky, came home last in 30th.
With that, we've got our winner for today. First to talk to, Brian Bennett, who I mentioned claimed his first victory of the season. Brian, this one's got to feel good. I take it you had no qualms about not allowing your championship-winning teammate to take victory on the same day that he took the championship.
None at all. I taught him how to drive this track. I don't want to let him beat me.
Well, clearly you know a thing or two, and it wasn't just pace. Strategy seems to have come in handy for you. You did not only duped your teammate and everybody else, but we really weren't paying attention to you for a potential win until the last stop got close. And Christian had some inside information from some of the teams who alerted us. Did you feel pretty confident about the win even before that final stop?
Well, first of all, I want to dedicate this to my mother. She spent the last 3 days in the hospital, and I've been pretty busy with her. And I didn't, honestly, to be able to win today, I haven't been practicing, so that's killer. I changed my race strategy because I didn't qualify well, and I decided to go with full fuel and then stretch it out. And when I saw Travis doing the same thing, and I made it a lap or so longer than him, and I think I had him on pace, I started to feel pretty good. And then, yeah, pretty much certainly after the second stop, the writing was on the wall. I just kind of knew I couldn't make the mistakes that would end the race for me.
We were talking during the broadcast a little bit about the difficulty of this car track combo and whether or not this might be the hardest race of the season. How do you feel about this? The supercars here out on Bathurst. Do you think this is the toughest one out of the 14 rounds?
Well, I don't know. A lot of people may say so. I know it's the longest, no yellows, and then you can be in the saddle for I guess we're just over 3 hours today. At any rate, for me personally, it's the closest thing to emulating what I did in real life racing, where you had to haul ass, but if you got off your line, it was over. So I used to race motorcycles out in the woods. So this, for me, it's always been good. I learned the track in the Spec Racer Ford, which is about the most twisted car in the service. So this thing is high horsepower, but if you respect it, it works out.
Well, that is fantastic, and a bit jealous of the real world racing experience. Is there anybody else you'd like to thank before we let you go for this victory here today?
Well, I want to congratulate Matt, of course, on the championship, and I thank Steve Steele's dad. He was running the box for all of us for a while, and I asked him to be selfish and mind ahead of me there near the end to make sure I didn't drive into a crash, because that's what happened to me here like 3 years ago. And then to the other racers, with Wade and Travis, we could have raced hard in the first stint, and that could have been the deal breaker for our results. And then all the lap guys, they behaved well, and everybody, drove hard when they needed to, and they stepped aside at good times otherwise. So all in all, it was a great event, and I hope everybody had an enjoyable event. I'm sorry that Trevor hit the grass, let me pass him. That was the nice guys. Sometimes it's not good to be nice, I guess.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. That was our winner today, Brian Bennett, and potentially even winner in the Legends Championship. We'll try and confirm that a little bit later. Brian Bennett talking to us. And now, as we let him celebrate, another driver probably celebrating himself, Bill is caught up with Matthew Thunhorst, our champion.
Matthew, I want to talk about the race, but first, let's talk about the championship. Go back to your mindset at the beginning of the season. You surprised? Would you be surprised to be the champion at this point?
To be honest, after those first 3 races and kind of just a comedy of errors and just nothing going right in those, and I didn't feel like a championship run was viable until, Nürburgring, Indy, and Bristol, where I had that amazing run that I almost mimicked here again with. I mean, when I got to Indy, I thought it was a chance, and mid part of the season, I was like, we're still in it, but, it's going to be tough to catch Blake. And then after I got the championship lead, at Eldora, I wasn't going to let this one go. I wanted it so bad, and kind of tie off the championship with a first and a second here. I mean,
yeah.
I knew I had those 3 races of Michigan, Milwaukee, and Bathurst circled because I loved them. And so to perform exactly how I needed to and tie up this championship and not let it go to the F1 race at Eldora or Interlagos, because F1s are my worst car. So I was going to throw everything I had into these 3 to make sure it didn't go there, because compared to the other guys who were battling with me, I was going to be in trouble.
I got it. Well, let's quickly talk about the race. Let's go early on. Little intuition there I thought you had when Slavonic and Smith got together. You gave them plenty of room to get around.
Yeah, I remember 2 years ago when Lionel ended up winning his championship here, and it seemed like he was just in the middle of a storm or something because everything kept going wrong, and I didn't want lose my championship on someone else's mistake, so I kept seeing them kind of nudge each other, and I'm just like, this probably isn't going to end well, and I hate that it didn't, because I know Eric was looking forward to a rematch we had in the Atlantic region last year, and I honestly felt like Lionel again, because it just seemed like even at the end of the race, it's just things kept popping out trying to get me, and it's just like, oh, just give me the checkered flag and let me run out of here.
Okay, we're going to not talk about Wade Hayes, who was doing some interesting short filling that gave you a hard time. When did you realize that Brian Bennett was going to be a factor?
When he was back there in the first run, and he kept gaining some time on me, so I knew Brian was fast. I mean, when I raced against him here 2 years ago, I knew he was fast. He just had a couple mistakes that took him out of it, but I knew early, and that's why I'm sure it looked really weird on the broadcast when I just pulled over that one lap for Wade, but I saw how much time we lost when Paul and Eric were racing. So I'm just like, you know what? Wade's caught me for a reason. I'm just going to mooch off his draft, and hopefully we can try to stay in front of Brian. And that strategy kind of worked out up until Brian popped out in front of me, and with the track going to basically just being a water park and just slick as heck, it kind of went awry anyway.
Those new tires that he had, there's no way you're going to catch them. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Hey, congratulations on the second place today, but more so, congratulations on a well-deserved championship.
Thanks so much. And I couldn't have done this without my team, Jason, Lionel, Brian, Trevor. I mean, all those and everybody else who's maybe not on the main squad, but the whole Lions team as a whole. It's awesome to represent them and bring Drivers Championship to Mario Andretti Championship. Just an amazing name for a trophy to bring that back to Alliance and to be a championship of this great league and this great.
Well-deserved. Congratulations. Joe?
That was our second place finisher in the race, our champion, unofficially, we should clarify, but by all the points, he should be his. Meanwhile, Christian has caught up with our third place finisher, one of the drivers we thought maybe could have won it today, Wade Hayes.
Wade, for the longest time, I really thought it was on, and I was convinced that you were going to hold Thunhorse behind, and it really looked like you could do it. And then there was that bit where Brian just came out of the pits ahead, and all of a sudden it was like the whole race changed. But even though it didn't come out with a win, you got to be happy with how you ran tonight.
Oh yeah, I am beyond happy. I came into this hoping, if I could come away with a top 10, I'd be real happy. So to be on the podium is awesome. My setup didn't have the long run pace that I needed, and so I went for a strategy where I would undercut early and just try to build that gap, and it worked for a long time, and then it didn't.
Yeah, I mean it looked really good for ages. We were trying to figure it out in terms of how you were getting the stops that you were compared to everybody else. It looked like you were having the shortest stops, yet you were still doing the same run length. So obviously the setup was maybe not so great at the very long run, but you were doing a great job fuel mileage wise, and it looked like execution wise it was going really, really well. And like you say, third place is still really, really good. And I was saying on the broadcast after the mistake at the chase, that to me looked like your strongest performance that you've had in this league, and I think it bodes well going forwards. Would you agree?
Definitely something to build on. This is I was ready for Milwaukee to have a good result and just hit some bad luck, and so that wasn't it. So I'm ready to step up from here and see where we end up.
Well, the next round is a Formula One car at Interlagos. So how do you feel about that? That couldn't really be more different than this combination.
It is extremely different. I'm not a downforce guy, but I do love Interlagos. Very similar to the way that I love Bathurst. So we'll see how.
Yeah, for sure. It'll definitely be an interesting one. And before we let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been hoping to show up on a broadcast for a long time so that I could say how much I appreciate my wife Amy and everything that she's ever done to support this crazy hobby of ours. From day one, it's never been a question of, yeah, go do it. I'm proud of what you're doing. So thanks to my wife Amy, and also thanks to the whole Kinetic team. Those guys are awesome, and we'll take it from there.
Well, thank you for coming and chatting with us, and again, a great race, and really seemed like a breakout race for you. So good luck going forwards.
All right.
That was our final podium spot, Wade Hayes, with a third today. And that is a guy who knows how to keep a marriage happy for sure. And glad to see he appreciates her. But we've got to close up. Just one more round to go. So let's give some thanks out today while we've got you. Big thank you to Mike Willett, of course, for organizing this thing, along with his entire team that's behind him. It'd be a long list to thank them all, but really we appreciate you for all you do to make this thing come to air. And also thanks to iRacing for putting us on IESN for another season. Make sure and subscribe and you get the opportunity so you don't miss that last race, which will be coming up and we'll talk about in a bit. Also, a thank you goes out to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast. You can see them listed here on your screen. Additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. And also a big thank you to our team, Amjad, Bill, Christian, and Dougie. It's a long one today. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. We're also on social media. Our Twitter is at GSR Channel, Facebook, Global SimRacing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. The next race, as we were talking about in those interviews, the last one of the season will be Interlagos and the MP430, the McLaren, the F1 car. That'll be Sunday, November 3rd at 7:45 p.m. Eastern. Make sure you come out for that. That's going to be a tough car to drive. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.